Hello and welcome back to Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair. In the last episode, we experienced an alternate storyline where Monokuma lost against Usami. If you can't tell where that came from, it's literally down below. That's the thing that I missed on reading before. And this time, we're checking out the novel mode, whatever that is. Whatever. But for now, I just want to mention, it is still the same recording session as the previous one, where I am experiencing a thunderstorm relatively nearby. So, I don't know. This may be extremely short, this may be extremely long. Who can I really say? I can read the light novel Danganronpa If, written by that amazing writer. I don't know about that. But I do know that there's a Danganronpa 0 that I found out, which is interesting. And it was just while I was scrolling through the wiki, through one of the items for something like here, because it was listed under trivia, and it's an item that the main character of Danganronpa 0, whatever that is, I'll have to look up the manga at some point, and the main character is depicted holding some donut or some pastry or some item, mainly, and the item that's included in here is actually an Easter egg nod to that in existence. So I don't know if someone just wrote their own manga to wrap around in with Danganronpa, and they just said it's a nod to it. Like, obviously it's not canon, but if you find it somewhere, you can read it and find out. But this novel, you can read the light novel Danganronpa If, written by the amazing writer. What the hell? The following novel contains references to characters who appeared in the novel Danganronpa 0. Just when I thought I was being special, never mind. From the beginning, continue, character introduction, finish? I don't know how long this will take, but from the beginning. If Monokuma Theater. Monokuma's monologue. The world is full of ifs. If Adam hadn't tied the knot with Eve, society as we know it never would have been born. The world that everyone lives in is just one outcome among countless ifs, and will continue to be a muddled world overflowing with infinite ifs. If is what's in miso soup, you know. I don't know what that means. What lies beyond this point is a scary world filled with iffy stepfathers who abandon their families. A Klein bottle where the inside and outside are filled with uncertainty. Klein bottle? I don't know what that is either. Ah, but don't break it, okay? It'd be expensive. It'd be so expensive that there's no way you'd ever be able to pay me back. Ahem. But no matter how you look at it, ifs are simply words like any other. No matter how hypothetical the story may be, the future is the only thing that's truly foggy. And the past is more solid than a frozen banana. You can't change a conclusion that has already happened. Even if you see a world that may have existed, it wouldn't affect the people living in reality. Because if is only if, after all. I don't know how long this is. Now that I think about it, how long is this? Because if it's gonna be like an actual full-on light novel, that might be really weird. Okay, so this says that this thing is roughly 700 pages. Yikes. But I'm interested in it. Oh well. Even if a parallel world exists where a particular if actually happened, humans cannot cross the boundaries between worlds that easily. No matter how far if goes, it will always be a what if scenario. Do you really want to see that? You've got some sick interests. Don't you think that it's an insult to Makoto and the others after the tragedy they overcame? Though as far as I'm concerned, I'll still insult them. If you're gonna look at if, I think it's better if you view the outside of the Klein bottle first. It might even be better if you view the ending of a video game called Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. Try to play it multiple times and spend your free time with Junko Enoshima at least 3 times too. Interesting. It may be ideal if you collect all the items in movies, too. Okay, now they're just trying to make you play it. But if you guys have come this far, I'm sure you've already done that. Done all that. Still, I'd buy the game if I were you. I'd actually buy at least 2 copies if I were you. The curtain lowers. The Button of Hope and the Tragic Warriors of Despair. What should I do with this? Makoto Naegi was at a loss. Despite his hesitation, his situation was extremely simple and composed of 3 key factors. First factor was that Makoto was currently locked inside a school. Hope's Peak Academy is the school for the privileged elite, and each student attending possesses ultimate talent. Makoto was chosen to attend Hope's Peak Academy by the lottery held to select the ultimate lucky student. When he arrived on his first day of school, he immediately lost consciousness, and when he woke up, he saw all the exits and windows had been sealed shut. The next factor was Monokuma, a mysterious robot bear being operated by the mastermind, and the announcement he made to all the students. "You'll be living your whole life in this academy," he declared. "If you want to leave, then kill someone and become the Blackened." This strange remote-controlled robot was telling Makoto and his fellow Ultimates to start killing each other in exchange for their freedom. They learned that more than one Monokuma exists, and that each one contains a bomb to prevent anyone from attacking them. On top of that, Monokuma announced that anyone who attempted to harm him would receive punishment. The third and final factor was the red button that Makoto was currently holding in his hand. What? He just has a button? What? The words escape button were crudely written on this button in marker. And though the first 2 factors were certainly causes for panic, Makoto only seemed at a loss over the third. Yeah, I definitely should check out Junko's interests or something. At a loss over the third. During his free time, Makoto noticed that the school store was open, and his curiosity got the better of him. He was overwhelmed by the disjointed atmosphere upon entering, but his attention soon focused on a strange vending machine. I wonder, if I were to re-download the game, I doubt my saves would still be on this computer. Maybe there's save data somewhere in my hard drive, but who knows. The words "Mono Mono Machine" were written on it, and it seemed to accept the strange bear pattern coins that they sometimes found inside the school. It seemed like a bad idea, but Makoto thought there might be a chance that this machine could dispense some way of escaping the school. And so he inserted the only coin he had, into the coin slot. And the result was the escape button mentioned earlier. There's a limit to how much you can tease us. Maybe the mastermind who trapped us in here is making a cruel joke? These thoughts filled Makoto's mind, and he began to feel deeply discouraged. However, there's always a chance, right? Makoto was just an ordinary boy, and he only gained entry to Hope's Peak Academy through a lottery to find the ultimate lucky student. Maybe that luck was the real deal. If this button is real, maybe I can let Sayaka... Makoto took a deep, slow breath and pressed the button. Instantly, pain burst through his entire body. Makoto's arms and legs went limp as he lost balance and fell to the floor in a crumpled heap. As he breathed heavily, it dawned on him what had just happened. I got electrocuted. He looked down at the button in his hand and noticed a small needle sticking out of it. Makoto quickly surmised that an electric current must have been running through it, so he literally just pierced his thumb, pressing down on it hard enough. After regaining enough of his strength to stand back up, Makoto thought about it once again. I should have known it was a fake. Just how sick and twisted was the mastermind. My head still feels a little woozy. I should go back to my room and rest today. With that in mind, Makoto walked out of the school store with slow, careful steps. But Makoto didn't know yet. If the escape button really was fake, it would have been an act of mercy from the mastermind. A small, bear-shaped shadow began moving around inside the now empty school store. The shadow, Monokuma, stood before the Mono Mono machine and stared at it silently. But after some time had passed, he began to laugh, a cold, hollow laugh, utterly devoid of emotion. Despite the fact he was alone, Monokuma began to talk, almost as if he was speaking to someone. Perhaps Monokuma was talking directly to the mastermind controlling him. I only put that in the Mono machine because I thought it'd be interesting if one of the last few survivors happened to win it. But with a success rate of 0.0000001%, I never thought anyone would actually win it. Perhaps I should have expected the ultimate lucky student to overcome such impossible odds. Monokuma started blushing and breathing heavily for no apparent reason. A robot like Monokuma doesn't need to breathe, but because his technology is super advanced, he can express himself like a living creature. Makoto was chosen through lottery, and now he's won the escape button through a lottery. This is obviously impossible, right? Is this what a miracle is? Is this all systems go toward escaping? Is something that defies all common sense about to come crashing into my world? Well, even though I don't really want all this at all, I'm starting to enjoy this new sensation. We'll be back after these commercials. Monokuma's internal machinery began running at full capacity, and his facial expressions began changing more smoothly than any humans could. Suddenly, his expressions immediately stopped, and he whispered through his speakers. Okay, whisper, but do the voice as well. I think is this really good luck? After muttering something so ominous, Monokuma's loud, screeching laughter rang jarringly throughout the room. The situation that was about to unfold contained two conflicting emotions in equal measure: hope and despair. The next day, nighttime, student dormitory, Makoto's room. Makoto Naegi lay on his bed, desperately struggling with the despair and hope churning within him. Monokuma had forced the students to watch a DVD, earlier that day. I thought I had skipped a word or something. Makoto's showed a scene that suggested his parents and little sister were in danger, and he now found himself determined to leave the school. It seems the other students were forced to watch shocking videos of their own. Videos so shocking that they were now determined to escape the school too, even if it meant sacrificing someone to do it. However, it was obvious that these videos were part of Monokuma's trap. As long as a student killed someone, they were allowed to graduate and leave the academy. It seemed that the mastermind controlling Monokuma was hell-bent on making the students kill each other. Also, just a question now that I have it in my head. How the hell is the third anime and the third game gonna happen? Because the ultimate despair is gone, and the remnants of despair are either all brain dead or slowly changing. Maybe they don't change at all, who knows? Because future is uncertain, making the students kill each other. But right now, Makoto was more worried about Sayaka Mizono, who seemed to be incredibly distressed after watching her DVD. Sayaka wasn't just the ultimate pop sensation. She was also Makoto's classmate that they were when they were students at Blackroot Junior High. Her optimism had been encouraging Makoto these past few days, and he was becoming a similar source of strength for her as well. If nothing else, I have to at least save Sayaka. As soon as Makoto thought that, he suddenly felt a small headache. Was he still reeling from being punched by Mondo the other day? Or was this a side effect of being electrocuted by the escape button? As Makoto pondered these things, the pain slowly subsided and he returned to his determined thoughts of escape. Anyway, we all need to work hard and... Huh? At that moment, Makoto realized his goal had changed slightly. We all need to? Ideally, it would be best if everyone survived together. However, aside from Sayaka, Makoto had never met the other students before. He didn't know if they could even be trusted in the first place. But at that moment, he trusted them without even an ounce of suspicion. He believed they were worth helping even at the cost of his own life. Just like Sayaka. Why? The headache struck again. As if all the blood vessels in his brain were being individually sliced open. Why did I just think that I could trust the others as much as I trust Sayaka? Makoto tried to figure out why his thought process was suddenly changed. Something was wrong. The throbbing pain in his head seemed to synchronize with the strange feeling that something was approaching him. As a ray of light began to form within the dark recesses of his own mind, the doorbell rang. Someone's here? He quickly got out of bed, but that only made his headache worse. With no concern for his safety, Makoto carelessly opened the door to his room and came face to face with Sayaka. I'm really sorry to come by so late. Sayaka? The pain. What are you doing out so late? The moment he saw her face, the pulsating pain in Makoto's head began accelerating. He felt like his world was being torn apart from the inside out. Sorry to bother you, but something really weird just happened and... Makoto? What's wrong? You don't look so well. Sayaka was pale and had been trembling when she came to Makoto's room, but she seemed surprised to see that his complexion was worse than her own. I'm fine. It's just my head. Makoto couldn't finish his sentence. His eyes rolled back into his head as if he'd lost consciousness and slowly fell to the floor. And Sayaka's beautiful voice let out a scream as she stood over Makoto's body. The next day, in the nurse's office, which is somehow open and available to us. Oh, you're awake! This is probably Sayaka. Hey, you awake? Are you okay? How many fingers am I holding up? As Makoto regained consciousness, he was greeted by the sight of fingers adorned with long fake nails being waved in his face. Mukuro. Huh? Huh? You're Junko, right? Hey, why do you sound so this has gotta be... Yeah. He's remembering. Gotcha. Hey, why do you sound so unsure? I'm a little shocked to hear you say that. Despite what she said, Junko Enoshima, the ultimate fashionista, was laughing as if she'd found all this very amusing. Makoto looked around and realized he'd never seen this place before. It looked somewhat like a hospital. 3 beds, including his own. Wait, he should recognize this, if it's in his memories. 3 beds, including his own, were lined up in the room, with various medical instruments laid around them. The black ceiling felt strangely oppressive, but as he sat up, Makoto's mind immediately centered on one possibility. Where are we? Did we get rescued? That'd be nice, huh? She replied as she looked away. Junko explained that this was the nurse's office on the first floor of the academy. That Monokuma thing said, I can't bear my precious students getting sick, and opened this place up this morning. But don't you think it's suspicious? What if all these meds are poison? To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised. Makoto remembered his encounter with the escape button and let out a small sigh. So, why am I here, Junko? You should thank Sayaka for that. She was here the whole night, taking care of you. She was? Junko ignored Makoto's surprise and continued casually talking. But then Taka got all fired up and was like, we should take turns watching over him. I just happened to be on duty when he woke up. Well, even then, only 'cause Byakuya ditched. I see. Thanks. Like I said, you should thank Sayaka. Anyway, how are you feeling? Is everything alright? Makoto thought about it for a moment and remembered what he had been thinking about just before he lost consciousness. This is kind of weird, but... Actually, it's a really weird question, but... What's up? Junko? We've never met each other before, right? Upon hearing this, Junko's eyes widened, but a few seconds later, she began to laugh. Huh? Are you for real? That pickup line is like, so totally played out, you know? Even though she was grinning, a serious look came over her face. Just so you know, you shouldn't expect anything like that from me. I know I look this way, but my virtue but I take my virtue pretty seriously. No, I mean, I never expected... Well, that's what I figured. It's obvious that you're a total omega male anyway. Makoto and Junko continued to talk to one another. Although he wondered why Junko was talking to him instead of leaving to get the others, Makoto didn't question it. He just wanted to talk to someone. Anyone. See, this is interesting. I don't like Junko, but Mukuro I was interested in. So maybe I should go back and talk to Mukuro, because that never entered my head that I would be able to learn more about Mukuro. As long as he interacted with his fellow students, he believed he would learn the truth about what was going on inside his head. 10 minutes later, Junko mostly talked about alpha males and omega males, her time being homeless, and about her past and her dreams for the future. Huh. So she was homeless. The last topic was a lot heavier than the previous ones, and Makoto's calm demeanor seemed to cheer her up. She smiled sincerely and said softly, "Thanks, Makoto." Maybe it was a sign of gratitude for listening to their troubles. She kept that same smile as she blurted out something horrifying. "In return, I promise that if I do decide to kill someone, it won't be you." Don't say scary stuff like that. At least, that's what Makoto thought. But the words that came out of his mouth expressed a different sentiment. "I see. Thanks. But I wouldn't want you to become the Blackened in the first place." For some reason, Makoto felt like the murderous words that came out of Junko's mouth seemed like a natural thing for her to say. She seemed very surprised by Makoto's response and quickly blurted out, "Huh? Are you serious? I was just kidding." Oh yeah, of course. Sorry for acting weird." "No worries. Let's just chalk this up to you being woozy from your recovery." She returned to her usual bubbly self, let out a big stretch, and turned to Makoto. I'm gonna get going now. Make sure you don't get killed before the next person arrives. I wonder if Mukuro, because Kyoko again. No, Sayaka. Yeah. After seeing her off, Makoto laid back down in the bed and started thinking to himself, "What is this strange feeling?" His dull headache continued as his thoughts began to blur. I was just talking to Junko, but I feel like I was talking to someone else. Who is she? The more he thought, the more it felt like his memories were sinking into a thick swamp. Each throb of pain pulsing in his head felt like a wave on the surface of that swamp. What is this feeling? It felt very unpleasant, as though someone's voice was screaming at him from inside his head. Makoto tried to organize his thoughts and go over everything that had happened to him. But he was interrupted by the sound of a bell. Unlike the dorm rooms, the nurse's office didn't have a doorbell. The bell sound that Makoto heard was ringing throughout the entire building.
Ahem. Testing. Mic check 1, 2. This is the test of the school broadcast system.
It was Monokuma's voice.
Now that Makoto has finally woken up, please assemble at the gym!
Makoto listened to Monokuma's heartless order and got out of bed without complaining. I have to go. He walked one step at a time, in accordance with the rhythm of his throbbing headache. Slowly he walked forward, not knowing if where he was headed was heaven or hell. Uh-oh. Okay. Sometimes this happens and I'm just not expecting it. The gym! Makoto! Are you alright? Sayaka ran over to Makoto as soon as he entered the gym. Yeah, thanks. Sorry about yesterday. I guess I really worried you.
Please don't apologize. I'm sorry too. I barged into your room when you weren't feeling well.
Now that you mention it, said Makoto, what happened yesterday? Sayaka looked away for a brief moment, but immediately turned back, smiled her pop sensation smile, and shook her head.
It's nothing. I'll tell you some other time.
So she was still planning on killing, mind you. She was still planning on doing that, but I don't know if it's happened yet or not. Huh? While they were talking, Kiyotaka Ishimaru, the ultimate moral compass, stepped forward, pointing an accusatory finger at Makoto. You're late, Makoto! Explain why you were tardy! The other students collectively raised their eyebrows, as if they were thinking, why is this guy yelling at someone who is sick? However, Makoto just smiled gently and answered him honestly. I didn't feel well, so I was resting in the nurse's office. Can you note that in the daily logbook? I see! That's consistent with my information. If that's the case, then I shall consider that matter settled. The conversation progressed smoothly, and Taka smiled as he kept talking. I'll take full responsibility for recording it. You just focus on recovering. If you ever feel ill, please report to the health committee. Seems we'll need to appoint health committee members after this meeting, though. Taka walked away, mumbling to himself as he opened a daily logbook he found in the academy's supply room. Celestia Ludenberg, the ultimate gambler, saw the whole conversation and walked up to Makoto. Despite his unreasonable behavior, you knew exactly what to say to him. Huh? As soon as Celeste said that, it dawned on Makoto. It's true that he didn't feel well and that he had been resting in the nurse's office. But when Taka asked him why he was late, even though he should have already known the reason, Makoto didn't feel annoyed or disappointed at all. It was as if he expected Taka to say that. Makoto felt strange that he had accepted Taka's personality so quickly. He couldn't understand why he asked Taka to do something as unnecessary as recording it in the daily logbook in the first place, or whether or not Taka had done that at all, or had found that in the first place. Why did I say that? It's like I was used to it. His response to Taka's demands came as naturally as he was breathing. Why? Every time he tried to think about it, his headache grew even worse. As Makoto struggled to think through the pain of his headaches, a black and white stuffed animal jumped out from behind the gym's podium and began twirling around as it spoke in a cheerful voice.
Hey guys, is everyone here?
He sounded like he was about to lead the students on a field trip, but not a single one of them had a smile on their faces.
What is it this time?
Or this is probably just one of the students. What is it this time? Are we gonna hijack a cruise ship and run into a gigantic worm? Of course, there was one exception. Yasuhiro Hagakure, the ultimate clairvoyant, still believed that their current situation was some kind of planned event. Gotcha. Gigantic worm? Yeah! Monokuma just ignored him and continued to address his students with his adorable voice.
Today, I'm going to tell you about our wonderful academy system. System sure sounds like a great word, don't you think?
It reeks of danger.
Just like a bear! I want you all to trample over the deaths of your friends and grow up to have hearted hearts. It's good to be a little naughty. I want you all to grow poisonous personalities.
After making his nonsensical introduction, Monokuma moved to the next topic. With this, he began providing a detailed explanation of the most vile system in the school, the class trial. Didn't we know about this before we got our motives?
Now, you can't just kill someone. You gotta kill someone without anyone else finding out you did it.
Yeah. Yeah, Sayaka was going to kill someone before she even knew about this part. Monokuma talked about his horrible graduation program with casual indifference. But because a killing hadn't happened yet, his lecture didn't instill any despair in the students. As long as killing never occurred, there'd be no point to the class trial. But no one could really say that a killing wasn't going to happen. As the students' suspicion began to rise, Monokuma continued explaining the class trial until... Wait, hold on a second. As Monokuma began to explain the executions that would serve as punishment, one girl stepped forward. Sayaka? Junko? As soon as he saw how angry she was, the rhythm of Makoto's headache began to change slightly.
You're friggin' insane, you know that?
The girl continued to complain angrily. She seemed completely different from the smiling person Makoto saw in the nurse's office. Huh? Was Junko always like that? No, she's different. That's how Junko acts, but... Is that person really Junko? Wait, what am I thinking? As Makoto struggled with his headache and confusion, Monokuma and the girl continued to argue.
What? Are you saying you're not gonna participate in the trial?
Only punishment
awaits that! Such blasphemy!
What punishment?
I don't know, throw you in a deep, dark, scary prison or something.
Different. The strange feeling I felt was now directed at Monokuma. Prison? No. They aren't that kind. A series of images flashed in Makoto's mind, and at first he thought it was some kind of parade. But he quickly realized that it was a mistake. What looked like lights were actually buildings engulfed in flames. The red decorating the scene seemed to come from human bodies. Despair. It wasn't confined to the academy, or even to Japan. Images of worldwide death and destruction flooded Makoto's brain with every throb of his headache. I've seen this before. Besides the indescribable violence taking place in all these images, there was one thing they had in common. Who are they? They're rampaging terrorists wearing black and white masks were wreaking havoc in these images. They took everything. Money, valuables, lives, families, dignity, the past, the future, and possibly even hope. The masks these masks terrorists were wearing perfectly resembled the face of the stuffed animal arguing with the student before him. Shut the hell up! Say whatever you want! I'm not gonna be— Oh, this is still Junko. Or Mukuro.
Shut the hell up! Say whatever you want. I'm not gonna be part of this. Don't be selfish! You're the one being selfish. Kill whoever you want. It's got nothing to do with me.
The evil standing...
The evil standing before me! I'm trembling with fear! But I won't give in to such evil. It's my style to stick it out and resist till the very end. If you really want to get out of here, you'll have to go through me first.
Monokuma swung his arms wildly as he charged at the girl with waddling steps. But the girl stomped on the self-proclaimed headmaster of the academy with ease.
Get out! Are you enjoying yourself now?
Pinned beneath the girl's foot, Monokuma looked up into the girl's cold eyes and calmly asked,
Are you?
Huh?
Violence against Headmaster Monokuma is not allowed! You violated a school regulation.
At that moment, a chill ran down Makoto's spine. She's going to get killed. Monokuma's words sounded very threatening to him. It wasn't a prediction or a guess. It was as if he knew the danger Monokuma posed from the start. If this continues, Junko's going to... His mind still didn't fully grasp the situation unfolding in front of him. By the time he realized he was about to remember something, he was already running forward. Junko? The impact of his feet combined with the rhythm of his headache, sending his brain and heart into a panic. No, she's different. She's...
I invoke the mighty summon spell! Help! To me, God Spear Gungnir!
Monokuma wiggled beneath the girl's foot and let out a scream. At that exact moment, Makoto charged at her and screamed out, Mukuro! Watch out!
Huh?
The girl dressed as Junko Enoshima widened her eyes in shock. As if to evade the charging Makoto, she jumped back with agility, unheard of in a teenage high school girl. And then, right at that moment, countless spears pierced the spot where she had been standing just a split second ago. All the students, including the girl, stared wide-eyed at this sudden turn of events. Spears, too many of them to count, had shot out with blinding speed from mechanisms installed in the floor and walls of the gym. However, Makoto was unable to notice this. Why did I just call Junko Mukuro? Mukuro? As that thought entered his mind, a sharp, sudden impact struck his side, followed by an intense, deathly pain that ran down his spine and spread through his entire body. Oh, how many times was he stabbed? The spear stabbed into his side, instantly tore his flesh to shreds, and shot out of his back, coated in blood and other bodily fluids. At that moment, the black fog that had engulfed Makoto's mind was consumed by death itself. And his consciousness slowly faded. He remembered everything. Because of the electric jolt and the chemical compound from the escape button, because of that button that he had found by chance, Makoto Naegi managed to escape. He escaped this hopeless game where he and his fellow students had their memories stolen and were forced to kill each other. Of course, that escape is also what led him to his current life or death predicament. In the end, perhaps he only escaped from one despair to fall into another. Yeah, is he still gonna live, though? But at the same time, his actions had unintended consequences for one person. A girl living a false identity as her beloved little sister, Junko Enoshima. Mukuro Ikusaba, the ultimate soldier, and a member of the ultimate despair. Her past, her future, perhaps even her hope itself, are on the path of despair. Is that the first chapter or something? And so, the curtain falls on Makoto's story for now. From this point, this story is about a certain girl. Oh. Okay, so Makoto is dead, I think. A girl who's more pitiful than anyone else in this sealed-off academy. A new curtain, along with new despair, shall now rise. Huh? The time had certainly stopped for Mukuro Ikusaba. It was as if everything around her had frozen perfectly still. In the past, she was known as the ultimate soldier. She'd experienced this feeling before, during her time at the mercenary group Fenrir. In situations where she was surrounded by a hopeless number of enemies within the jungle, or in a desert ruin, the charging enemies seemed as though they were frozen in time, which allowed her to claim a decisive victory in all her battles. But this wasn't a battlefield. So why did this familiar sensation activate once again? In order to understand what had happened, Mukuro slowly tried to assess the current situation from within this frozen world. Junko and Mukuro are both children of despair. But Junko Enoshima, the true ultimate despair, harbors a far deeper darkness within her. Though their last names are different, Mukuro is Junko's older sister, connected by the bonds of blood. She cooperated with Junko's hopeless plan and impersonated her under the pretense of participating in the killing game alongside her classmates. According to the plan, Mukuro was supposed to oppose Monokuma, who her sister was controlling, and be locked in a dungeon as punishment. Okay. Well, since this is in the official game, that maybe this is okay. Isolated from the others, she would escape the dungeon and perform various acts intended to deprive the students of hope. That was the role she had been assigned. When Makoto succumbed to his headache, Junko ordered her to see if the shock had caused him to remember anything that could make him a liability. He woke up as she was tending to him, so she made a small talk with him, but she didn't notice any change in his behavior. Until this point, she was certain that there shouldn't be any problems. Nothing could possibly go wrong. She stomped on Monokuma like her sister ordered to do, and flawlessly spoke the lines that she was taught to memorize. Afterwards, she would fall through a trapdoor into the dungeon and remain isolated from the other students. That was her role. She hadn't done anything wrong. There were no problems. There were no problems. She repeated that to herself over and over like a silent prayer. But in that frozen moment in time, what she saw was not a trapdoor, but countless spears. One of them had skewered Makoto through his side. Why? Makoto? Why are there spears? Gungnir? I would have died if I hadn't moved. Did Junko mess up the plan? No, Junko would never mess up. Was she trying to kill me? Me? Makoto saved me. Why? Why did he say my name? Did his memories come back? Did I not realize that? Did I make a mistake? Is that why Junko got angry? Is this punishment? Is this my fault? Junko tried to kill me. Kill me. Kill me. Kill me. Slowly, time came back to her world. Mukuro could feel her face turning pale as she slowly looked toward Makoto. The students' screams ran throughout the gym. Sayaka was probably the first one to scream. But who screamed first didn't matter to Mukuro. Makoto. Why? Makoto was the ultimate lucky student. He had been her classmate for the past 2 years, and now he was a sacrifice to despair. Not long ago, he had given her an answer of sorts during their conversation in the nurse's office. He was just a pawn in the plan her sister had devised. And now a feeling of doubt began forming in Mukuro's mind. What did I want from Makoto? As her heart churned restlessly, she continued to think. In return, I promise that if I do decide to kill someone, it won't be you.
In return, I promise if I do decide to kill someone, it won't be you.
Was I impersonating Junko then? Or did I really mean that? When did I start feeling this doubt? Just now, the moment he saved me. Or when we spoke in the nurse's office earlier? Or when I first confronted him about this killing game before his memories returned? Or was it even before then? Mukuro stood there, confused and overwhelmed. As Makoto slowly opened his eyes, the spear still impaling him through the side. Mukuro? Makoto, are you okay? Who is this? Mukuro was no longer impersonating the ultimate fashionista. Looking up from the floor of the gym, Makoto asked, "Why are you dressed up like Junko?" He was smiling. Maybe he couldn't feel the pain anymore. Or maybe he was still affected or being affected by something else. But regardless, Makoto ignored the fact he was dying just to give Mukuro his warm smile. I'm glad you're safe, Mukuro. As soon as she heard Makoto's weak, fading voice, something inside Mukuro snapped. From within the shell of despair she had built up, an intense emotion began flowing out. No! This is all wrong! She couldn't hold back that emotion any longer. No! No! And for the first time in her life, Mukuro unleashed a scream into the world. As Mukuro fell to her knees and clutched her head, a small shadow started walking toward her back. A stuffed animal that had been under her foot, Monokuma. His claws were extended, and he was no longer walking with his usual waddle. Instead, he moved like a beast, silently stalking his prey, as he slowly advanced within his target's blind spot. As he inched closer to Mukuro, Monokuma raised his razor-sharp claws, crouched onto his haunches, and suddenly leapt toward the back of her neck. However, just before those claws could reach the paralyzed Mukuro, a dark shadow moved in from the side and swatted those claws away with one blow. His lunge deflected. Monokuma was sent flying through the air, spinning wildly before crashing into the wall.
Damn you! What are you trying to do?
Oh, Sakura.
Damn you. What are you trying to do?
Sakura Ogami, the ultimate martial artist, had just prevented another tragedy. She stood before Monokuma and addressed him in a loud, booming voice.
Not only did you attempt to kill Junko for violating school regulations, you even attacked Makoto, who had nothing to do with this. If you plan to continue acting in such a savage manner, there is no reason for us to play along with your game.
Byakuya Togami, the ultimate affluent progeny, smirked condescendingly at Sakura. One could say you've now violated school regulations with your senseless actions. He looked as if he had honestly did not care if his fellow students lived or died at all. Well, she merely deflected the headmaster's attack just now, so I do not think it truly counts as an act of violence. Like Byakuya, Celeste seemed unfazed as she chided him over his words. However, the banter between the two was enough to stir the stunned students to action. Makoto! Sayaka was the first one to run toward Makoto, who lay bleeding from his stomach. But Monokuma stopped her, shouting in a tone of voice that seemed completely out of character.
Be careful! Don't get too close to those two!
Huh? Startled by Monokuma's desperate tone, Sayaka and the others stopped moving almost instinctively. The students looked around at each other. Instead of his usual playful gait, Monokuma walked toward them with deliberate, methodical steps. And then he suddenly blurted out something that took everyone, including Mukuro Ikusaba, by surprise.
I'm sure you're probably confused by this sudden turn of events, but I want you guys to work together!
As Mukuro slowly turned her head toward Monokuma, he pointed at her and yelled,
Mukuro Ikusaba and her accomplice, Makoto Naegi, are the terrorists responsible for locking you all in this academy!
Once again, time stopped for Mukuro. But this time, she wasn't the one affected. Everyone seemed to be frozen in shock. After a few seconds of silence, Aoi Asahina, the ultimate swimming pro, spoke first.
Huh? You're kidding, right? I mean, Makoto is a terrorist? That's impossible. And who's Mukuro anyway? I mean, that's Junko.
Monokuma began slowly explaining to Aoi.
The real Junko must be in prison somewhere in this school! Worst case scenario, she might be killed! Mukuro must have researched which one of you would be easiest to impersonate and hid among you all by pretending to be her. She was probably trying to make sure the killing game went smoothly!
Suddenly, Monokuma's hands and feet began jerking in an awkward motion as he looked to the other students and introduced himself.
I'm Bishiki Madurai, the ultimate hacker. I'm your upperclassman. I hacked into the academy from the outside, and I was finally able to take control of Monokuma's body just a little while ago.
Take control? From who?
From the head of the terrorist organization that's controlling this robot from the outside!
What? What are you saying, Junko? Mukuro trembled as she heard the words coming from Monokuma's mouth. For a brief moment, she clung to the hope that her sister wasn't trying to kill her. But as soon as that hope was born, it was immediately consumed by despair. Junko had the power to transform hope into despair. She would never let anyone hack her that easily. There was only one explanation. Junko Enoshima was pretending to be someone named Bishiki in order to frame Mukuro and Makoto. It was as though Junko was using Mukuro's survival as a branching path to lead the students to a different despair. Monokuma continued talking, telling the students more lies designed to prod them into action.
On your first day at Hope's Peak Academy, you guys were exposed to sleeping gas, knocked unconscious, and taken hostage. Mukuro and Makoto are probably the only operatives that the terrorists send inside the school. That means they probably know how to escape from here. And then Monokuma turned to face Mukuro. Mukuro Ikusaba was a member of a mercenary group called Fenrir. She's a wanted criminal who's killed over 10 people associated with the school. So don't get soft and think you can actually capture her alive. In fact, that's exactly what the cops told me. So the moment I saw an opening, I tried hacking that trap they set and tried to kill her.
But what about Makoto? Monokuma gave a cold, emotionless answer to Sayaka's question.
My guess is that a measly little ultimate lucky student didn't stand a chance of defying a group called Fenrir. He was probably threatened and forced to cooperate before you entered the school. Or, judging from his earlier actions, maybe Mukuro seduced him.
Sayaka's face went pale when she heard that answer. She immediately stopped talking. Mukuro raised her head and shouted, "You're wrong! Makoto isn't a terrorist! You all have to believe me!" The whole gym fell silent, and then, as if he was speaking for everyone there, Taka stepped forward and nervously asked,
Hold on!
"What do you mean, Makoto isn't a terrorist? It sounds like you're saying there's no doubt that you, in fact, are a terrorist. I ask that you correct yourself at once and say, we are not terrorists." Celeste began expressing her own doubts as well.
It is strange. Does it not seem odd that she is so protective of someone we only just met a few days ago?
Mukuro stood in silence. The other students' faces began to fill with suspicion and doubt as they realized they weren't looking at the real Junko Enoshima. Byakuya pushed up his glasses and began coldly pointing out what seemed out of place to him. I heard that Makoto, or whatever his name is, called you Mukuro instead of Junko. How would Makoto know that what your name really is? That your name is really Mukuro, if he just met you not that long ago? That's... Byakuya, again. I've also heard of Fenrir, continued Byakuya. As I recall, there's members of a tattoo somewhere on their body. Instinctively, Byakuya's words put Mukuro into a calm state of mind. In hostile situations, her defensive reflexes as the ultimate soldier often manifested themselves. Mukuro's tattoo was on the back of her right hand. She wondered how she could hide this from the other students without also calling attention to it. But it's got makeup on it, right? But in the end, this concern was in vain. If the police's records are true, she should have a tattoo on the back of her right hand. Why do you know it specifically on the right hand? As Monokuma freely... Oh.
If the police records are true, she should have a tattoo on the back of her right hand.
As Monokuma freely divulged that information.
Oh!
All right, cried Taka, his voice filled with enthusiasm. Show us the back of your right hand and prove your innocence! Monokuma dispensed another unnecessary remark.
Make sure you look real close. She might have covered it up with foundation.
Junko had ordered Mukuro to hide her tattoo with foundation, so Monokuma's information was entirely true. There was nothing Mukuro could do except stay quiet. However, she wasn't staying quiet because her identity was about to be exposed. She was struck by the realization that her sister was completely serious about pinning this on her. Why the hesitation? Shouted the foolishly honest Taka. Oh, as my classmate, I have complete faith in you! From behind him, Hifumi Yamada, the ultimate fanfic creator, murmured to himself as cold sweat ran down his cheeks.
Well, look at that! I guess this is what they call a checkmate, huh? Why don't you just fess up already, you fucking bastard?
In contrast to Hifumi, why don't you just fess up already, you fucking bastard? Mondo Iwata, the ultimate biker gang leader, was totally pissed, royally pissed. However, there were some students who were busy questioning Monokuma instead of Mukuro. Okay, Leon. Hey, you're not coming to save us? Shouted Leon Kuwata, the ultimate baseball star. You should hurry up and charge in here already. Monokuma looked at Leon and shook his head softly.
The police can't help you right now. Not only are you guys hostages, it's possible that the entire school has been rigged with explosives and poisonous gas. I hacked into this Monokuma robot to investigate that for myself.
Then, Sayaka.
Then, what about everyone on that DVD? What about everyone outside the school?
Asked Sayaka.
The memory of the DVD
The memory of the DVD she was forced to watch yesterday still weighed heavily on her mind, but Monokuma didn't have a clear answer.
I don't know anything about
any DVDs, but there are definitely terrorists causing havoc out here. Law enforcement around the school is in shambles trying to deal with this.
That's impossible. Sayaka shuddered and collapsed to her knees. Sayaka. Next to her, Chihiro Fujisaki, the ultimate programmer, wasn't sure about what she should do. Interesting. Behind her, two other girls stood silently. The first was Toko Fukawa, the ultimate writing prodigy. She seemed to be trying very hard not to look at Makoto as he lay bleeding. The other was a quiet girl who hadn't talked about herself much, named Kyoko Kirigiri. Unlike Toko, Kyoko was watching everything intently, as if she were studying the scene of a crime. From Makoto's breathing patterns to subtle changes in Mukuro's facial expression, nothing was escaping her attention. Suddenly, Toko began nervously talking to Sakura.
So anyway, let's just say that Mukuro woman, or whoever, over there is a terrorist. Hurry up and beat her to death or something. We don't know that yet, said Sakura. My fists do not mete out justice based on simple speculation.
Sakura tried to get near Makoto to examine his wounds, but Monokuma stood in her way, shouting,
Don't come any closer!
This meant that Mukuro was the only one who could get close to Makoto. She had ended countless lives on the battlefield. She knew from experience. If she didn't treat Makoto's wounds, he would die. His wounds were not immediately fatal, but if he continued losing blood, he would eventually slip into shock and die shortly thereafter. Please, you need to treat Makoto. This has got to be Mukuro. Please, you need to treat Makoto first. Absolutely not, said Byakuya, harshly interrupting Mukuro. Tying you up and examining the back of your right hand is our first priority. Hey, Makoto's in danger! Now's not the time for that! Hina. Damn it, Hina! Hey, Makoto's in danger. Now's not the time for that, said Hina. Okay, now that I reread it, thank you, Hina. Oh, yes, I still love you so much. As she cast a worried glance at Makoto. She was still having trouble understanding the situation, and hadn't decided if Makoto was suspicious or not. Byakuya was about to snap back at her, but Mukuro's actions stunned him into silence. She took a deep breath and then Mukuro removed the blonde wig from her head. Where there were two long blonde pigtails, only a moment before, there was now short black hair. She cleaned her face of all emotion, and when she spoke, her voice rang throughout the gym. I'm not Junko Enoshima. My name is Mukuro Ikusaba. The student stared wide-eyed at her open confession. All she did was remove her wig and clear her emotions. But in doing so, the person the students had recognized as Junko Enoshima vanished from their sight. The terrorist that had taken her place continued to speak in a calm, stoic tone. I helped lock everyone inside this academy. The confession on a seaside cliff moment. What? Oh, Hifumi.
The confession of a seaside cliff moment has finally arrived!
Hifumi blurted out. Taka.
What? Wigs are against school regulations, Junko! Mukuro!
Shouted Taka. As if stirred by their cries of excitement, the other students began clamoring among themselves.
Huh?
Said Yasuhiro.
So Makoto's wounds are, real?
Does that mean that stuff about... what? Oh, no, this is still in the quote.
Does that mean that stuff about terrorists and whatever is all real too? So everything that's happened these past few days wasn't just a bunch of staged events?
As the reality of the situation began dawning on Yasuhiro, all Leon could say to him was,
Shut the hell up!
Byakuya just remained calm and addressed Mukuro in a condescending manner. What does your group want? If you were after money, you would have already tried to negotiate with me. Of course, I'd rather let them die than surrender to your ransom demands. Our purpose is to fill the world with despair. Byakuya scoffed at this notion and began to speak once again. I see. Monokuma said something similar. So that ideology is what fuels your terrorism. It's true, if you did anything to me, you would certainly fill the world with despair. But obviously, that would be impossible for you. Aoi couldn't believe what Byakuya was saying, and frowned as she muttered, How self-centered can you be? After confirming that Byakuya had no more questions for her, Mukuro looked at Makoto, whose breathing had slowed, and let her voice show some emotion. Mukuro, gotcha. But Makoto has nothing to do with this. You can't believe what Monokuma says. Mondo.
What did you say, bitch? I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're a terrorist, just like Monokuma said.
Mukuro looked away from Mondo and continued speaking. That's true, but Makoto isn't involved at all. Celeste coldly brushed her objection aside. I do not think trying to protect him will do you any good. After all, we all heard Makoto call you by your real name. That's... She had no words. There was nothing she could say to protect Makoto, even though Makoto was truly innocent. Though Mukuro was the ultimate soldier, her powers were largely limited to battle. Even a normal high school student could outwit her when it comes to debate and negotiation. Oh. Okay, now I feel bad. So she really was the dumb one. If she were the ultimate negotiator, she might be able to convince them that their memories had really been erased. But in her current situation, if she tried to bring up their memory loss, they would think it was a desperate excuse. Even Mukuro knew that. But even if she didn't know what to say, she still knew what to do. Right now, we need to treat Makoto first. And then she started walking toward Makoto as if nothing had happened. To the others, it seemed like Mukuro had decided to abruptly change the subject. Don't know who this is. Hold it. We will immediately take Makoto to the nurse's office for treatment. However, we must tie you up. Oh, this was Sakura's. This was Sakura's honest demand. But there was no way Mukuro could accept it. If she was separated from Makoto, there'd be no telling what Monokuma would do to him. And between Mondo's hot temper and Byakuyo's cold heart, Makoto could easily sustain further injuries under the pretense of interrogation. Furthermore, among these students, Mukuro knew she was the only one who had experience treating wounds due to her time with Fenrir. After mulling that over, she narrowed her eyes and went silent. Her mind was made up. She was determined to fight her way out of here and escape with Makoto. Oh. Okay. I apologize, but I need you to fall asleep right now. As she said that, Sakura instantly positioned herself behind Mukuro. Fall asleep? Oh, she's gonna take Sakura out. She was completely within her blind spot. To a normal person, it would have seemed like Sakura had suddenly vanished. Oh, wait, no.
I apologize, but I need you to fall asleep right now.
After moving faster than any human being could see, Sakura's equally fast hands launched a blow toward the back of Mukuro's neck. However... Sorry, Sakura, but I need to get out of here. Mukuro parried Sakura's fist with a spinning roundhouse kick. Sakura raised an eyebrow at the unexpected counterattack. Mukuro tried to use the momentum of her kick to sweep Sakura's feet out from under her. However, Sakura dodged and instinctively struck back against Mukuro's pivot leg. But Mukuro was faster and jumped up, aiming a tornado kick at Sakura's chin. Sakura deflected the attack with one arm, then both combatants leapt backwards, glared, and charged simultaneously. Every blow they dealt was parried and countered by the other, and though they were both unarmed, the sound of their battle echoed throughout the gym. It was like a typhoon had been compressed to the size of a car and set loose inside the gym. The other students were powerless to stop them. All they could do was stare at the breathtaking dance of death unfolding before them. After 10 minutes had passed, the enormous sound of one final impact rang throughout the gym. The two warriors leapt back once again and breathed heavily as they stared each other down. This has got to be my mistake. Though it's only been a few days, I cannot believe I did not notice such an impressive fighter was hiding among us. In addition to the surprise Sakura felt, it was as if the battle had left her energized. Mukuro, on the other hand, looked down at her arm, confirmed that it had been wounded during the battle, and thought to herself, she's strong. I don't think Sakura's even taking this seriously right now. Despite being constantly surrounded by firearms, blades, traps, and explosives during her time with Fenrir, this was the first time she had ever been wounded. Yeah, that's right, she had no wounds on her. Mukuro was powerless before the might of the woman known as the ultimate martial artist, and the strongest woman in the world. Just as I thought, I can't beat Sakura with my bare hands alone. If she had been directly ordered to kill Sakura, Mukuro would have opted to either snipe her from a distance or poison her. At this close range, she would need an assault rifle just to stand a fighting chance. I don't have time for this. She looked at Makoto and confirmed that his breathing had grown even shallower. I need to hurry. But at that moment, she had no one to turn to for help. Suddenly, Mukuro had an idea. It was true that gaining an ally in this situation was impossible. However, she could still turn one person into her enemy's enemy. Which one? Oh, Sakura. Mukuro took a deep breath before she charged at Sakura. Then she immediately feinted and charged at a different girl. Toko, who had been cowering in fear from the gym... Interesting. Toko had been cowering in fear from the battle between Sakura and Mukuro in the corner of the gym.
This is bad.
Oh wait, this is bad. Sakura was caught off guard and tried to run after her, but Mukuro was one step ahead and reached Toko first.
Why me?
I'm sorry.
Wait, hold on.
Mukuro jabbed Toko in her solar plexus and she fell into her arms. Taka and Aoi yelled out in shock. Anyway.
This is bad. She plans to use Toko as a hostage.
Toko!
In contrast to their shocked faces, Byakuya just snickered and coldly remarked, "You fool. Did you really think we would care if you take someone we just met a few days as your hostage?" Mukuro just softly glanced at Byakuya and replied, "You didn't meet her a few days ago." "What did you say?" "You met her 2 years ago." Byakuya scowled. Mukuro ignored him and held her bloody arm in front of Toko's face. And then she yelled into her ears,
Wake up, Genocide Jack!
It seemed so random and out of place. Why would Mukuro mention the name of a notorious serial killer right now? Also, did everyone just accept Genocide Jack in the school? Because there were times in the photos that Genocide Jack was just in the school, behind Byakuya, smiling with her tongue out. Was she just accepted? I don't know. The students looked at each other with confusion, when suddenly, Toko, who had been groaning in pain, suddenly kicked out from the floor of the gym with renewed vigor. She leapt into the air much higher than any normal human should have been able to. While hovering several meters in mid-air, Toko twirled faster than a professional figure skater. Okay, now you're going somewhere else. This caused her skirt to flutter, revealing multiple pairs of sparkling scissors. Countless tally marks were scratched into her legs, like a kill count carved into a fighter jet. If not for the situation, Toko's glamorous jumps and spins would have been a sight to behold. The girl formerly known as Toko Fukawa cackled wildly, her red eyes sparkling with the absurdly long tongue flopped out of her mouth.
You call for me and so I appear. I've got a murder IOU for
YOU, okay. Weird. That IOU threw me off. I just adopt that sort of laugh. Toko? The situation had changed so drastically that even Sayaka, who was silent up until now, spoke up.
Hey, you flash...
What? What? I don't know what that means.
Hey, you flash in the pan. Don't treat Genocide Jack like...
What?
Don't treat Genocide Jack like that depressing little Four Eyes.
That dirty girl doesn't bathe herself at all, so I gotta put in 5 times the effort to rub myself down in the shower. Toko's sudden change in personality sent the students glamoring. Wait, I thought, I don't know what's going on. Clamoring among themselves.
Hey, Leon yelled. What the hell does that mean?
Monokuma just shook his head. I'd like to know who's talking at times, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
There are some things even I don't understand.
The students continued to panic at the strange turn of events. Toko, now calling herself Genocide Jack, took out a set of scissors from under her skirt and snipped them with glee as she looked around the room.
Huh? Man, it's been a while since I got to stretch my legs. So what were you guys gonna do here at the gym while I was snoozing away? Have an orgy? I understand. I totally understand. You guys need me to cut up your clothes so you can feel even naughtier. Yeah, right. Why the hell would I do that for you dumbasses? My scissors are only meant for cutting the supple, tender flesh of adorable boys.
Genocide Jack was causing a ruckus, but when she saw Makoto laying on the floor, she tilted her head once again.
Huh? Big Mac, you're like totally about to die. What's the deal?
Did the world fill you with so much despair that you all came here to commit mass suicide? That's so hot. But why are you starting without me?
Toko? Cried Aoi. They call her Aoi in here. Interesting.
Get a hold of yourself.
Genocide Jack ignored Aoi and let her emotions run unchecked, jumping and dancing with excitement as she held her scissors.
Ah, jeez. I wanted to stab Big Mac's side myself. A spot right here, and where the ribs are kind of showing already. He's not even screaming right now, though. What does that mean?
Oh well, maybe I can just get used to this feeling of alienation. Instead. I have no idea what's going on anymore.
I have no idea what's going on anymore,
shouted Yasuhiro.
This is all the aliens' fault.
There we go. That's Yasuhiro's. Yasuhiro buried his head into his arms, but no one was paying attention to him. The student's attention was entirely focused on Genocide Jack. Using that to her advantage, Mukuro began sneaking over to Makoto. As she cautiously picked him up, she confirmed that his body temperature was starting to decrease.
I can still make it there in time.
Though she was carrying another person, Mukuro managed to soften the sounds of her footstep as she ran for the gym's doors. By the time the students heard Mukuro open the door, it was already too late. She had managed to escape the gym with Makoto. However, not everyone was unaware of what Mukuro was doing. Monokuma saw her movements out of the corner of his eye, but chose not to tell the students. And one other person, Kyoko Kirigiri. She saw Mukuro carry Makoto away, but did not inform the others as she watched them leave in silence. As everyone wrestled with their own personal thoughts and speculations, Hope's Peak Academy began walking a path toward a completely different chaos. Interesting. With Makoto on her back, Mukuro took several trophies from the gym entrance hall, and after passing through the door leading the hallway, she jammed the trophies through the door handles. Though Sakura could easily destroy these makeshift locks, they should buy Mukuro a few extra seconds. Then Mukuro started running to the nurse's office, the place she last spoke to Makoto. Everything necessary for performing first aid could be found there. Her little sister was her enemy. Her fellow Ultimate students were her enemy. Her only ally right now was Makoto, who was on the verge of death. Mukuro knew that even she wasn't her own ally anymore. Right now, Amidst this chaos, amidst her sister's betrayal and nearly being killed, she believed. She believed she was the only one who truly understood her little sister. That's why she felt she had to protect her. That's right. You didn't do anything wrong, Junko. You just wanted to feel despair, that's all. Right? Because you love me. That's why you wanted to kill me. You were just trying to feel despair, right? I'm sorry. I'm sorry I failed to bring you despair. But at the same time, she wondered, if she saves Makoto and betrays her sister by disrupting her plan, wouldn't that fill her with even stronger despair? Wouldn't that make her happy? But betray Junko. What should I do? Mukuro closed her eyes and listened to Makoto's weak breaths. What should I do, Makoto? On a battlefield where all you need to do is kill and survive, Mukuro was invincible. She could suppress all her emotions and fully immerse herself in becoming a perfect killing machine. But on this twisted battlefield of daily high school life, she could no longer keep her emotions in check, especially around her little sister. Mukuro, the ultimate soldier, was beginning to question even it being ultimate despair. The impulses of the normal high school girl inside her were starting to affect her state of mind. Even so, the poor girl continued to run through the dark hallways, clinging to this conflict within herself. She was now walking along a narrow, hair-thin path. For some reason, I read hair-thin path correctly, but I thought that I had misread it. A path between the hope of Makoto Naegi and the despair of Junko Enoshima. Meanwhile, everyone still in the gym was left in a state of complete confusion. Toko was famous for being a prolific author, but even though she came across as unsociable and depressing, her mind-blowing transformation seemed to have just crossed all all that aside. Toss that all aside. Toko is Genocide Jack? Sayaka trembled with fear as Jack tilted her head and stuck out her tongue, her long tongue.
Huh? What's with this reception, you guys? You guys didn't know who I was?
Have I been found out? Or have you known all along?
And why was the sullen samurai dressed like that? That outfit didn't look good on her at all.
The sullen samurai was probably referring to Mukuro, which means Toko already knew Mukuro in advance. Confronted by that shocking truth, the students had no idea where to begin talking. So many things were clearly wrong by this point. But there were a few students, such as Byaku and Kyoko, who opted to remain calm and observe the situation. I feel as if I just split the back of my heel, like my skin just got taut and it like burst in the back. I don't know how that happened, but something hurt. I don't know what happened. And observe the situation. Alright, someone better spill it. Who? Huh? Who gave Makoto an extra mouth to feed? I don't care if you want to stab him or slice him. I just can't forgive whoever put that ugly ass hole in Big Mac's side. Toko, no, Genocide Jack, spun her scissors in her hands. As she spoke, her emotions and facial expressions constantly changed. Who am I reading this as? Even though the threat of her scissors, she exuded... Even without the threat of her scissors, she exuded an aura of danger that made her unapproachable. The flank steak of a young boy like Macaroons is like a blue bird that pops out of a golden egg. If you would have just let me handle it, I would have killed him so good that even Tiltil and Miltil would be eager to die. Tiltil? Who's... But poor McCutie's heart and soul have been stomped by such a sloppy kill. That actually sounds pretty exciting, too. But I decline. Toko, you're not making any sense, screamed Hina. What in the world happened to you? Genocide Jack answered by pointing her scissors at Aoi. What happened to me? I got bored, that's what. That sourpuss locked me up a few days ago, but when she went unconscious, I thought I'd finally get to do my thing. But I woke up for all this. My cutie's soaked with blood and I got no clue what's going on. It's so damn confusing. All I can do is laugh. No one seemed to be able to get a straight answer out of Jack, so Ifumi made a timid remark. I've dealt with girls like this in my 2D dating games, but this doesn't even compare. There's like an SSS difficulty to clear her. I can't believe you'd even think about her as someone worth clearing. I can't believe you even think about someone as... Oh, Jesus. There's so much reading, but I set myself up for this. I can't believe you'd even think about her as someone worth clearing, mumbled Leon. It was clear that things were going nowhere. And as if she were responding to everyone else's expectations, Sakura stepped forward. She might be in the throes of confusion. I should try to restrain her for now. As soon as she heard that, Genocide Jack stopped moving, stuck out her lizard-like tongue, and grinned wickedly. Oh, what's up? Are you really gonna fight me, Battle Ogre? Too bad. My lovely scissors are only for cutting through adorable boys. Women should just stay home. I won't taint my scissors with your filthy blood. Replied Sakura. It seems my words are useless on you. Sakura entered a fighter stance, determined to restrain Jack, but Jack knew she couldn't win in a fair fight, and adopted a strange stance of her own. In a normal fight, Jack would obviously lose to the ogre. Okay, even the script calls her ogre. Okay. Actually, going back to that, why was there a statue of Sakura at all? It's still not... Why? Okay. But if... Oh, wait. If the game was designed for them, Hina probably put it in there. Hina probably requested that it be put in there. But if Jack focused just on dodging attacks, the outcome of the fight would be hard to foresee. Of course, Genocide Jack's physical abilities were only obvious to a few of the students in the first place. The two women exchanged hostile stares as the other students gulped nervously and watched. Except for one person. Kyoko was watching something else. She was watching Monokuma, who was in the corner of the room, in the gym, unmoving as white noise emitted from his speakers. He had stopped moving the moment everyone's attention focused on Sakura and Toko. It's possible that Madurai's hacking had been disrupted, but an infinite number of other possibilities were also swirling around in Kyoko's mind. She brushed back her hair with a gloved hand and continued to watch. Though she couldn't fully remember her talent, the actions she was taking right now were fueled by pure instinct. The strange situations that kept occurring in front of her were shaking her to her very core. Her mind worked diligently to scoop up countless amounts of information from her vast sea of memories. And as they were synchronizing with the synapses firing in her brain, Sakura and Toko kicked off the ground at the same time, and an intense impact rang throughout the gym. And back here. Oh! Blood! That is just substituted from Hifumi's blood, but oh well. Thanks to the heated battle that was unfolding in the gymnasium, Mukuro Ikusaba was able to buy more time than she had imagined. As soon as she entered the nurse's office, she rummaged around for medical supplies and did what she could to stop the bleeding. Though still quite shallow, Makoto's breathing slowly stabilized. Mukuro let out a little sigh of relief. However, even though she was somehow able to stop the bleeding, she wasn't out of the woods yet. Miraculously enough, it seemed like none of Makoto's major arteries or organs were damaged. Pure chance. Ultimate luck. Was this perhaps thanks to his ultimate luck? Or maybe he wasn't actually all that lucky. After all, the only sort of medical treatment he could hope for was partial at best. Mukuro couldn't decide. If only I could do a blood transfusion. There's bags in there. The nurse's office should have had several blood packs for transfusions. Mukuro suspected that Makoto's blood type might be written in the e-handbook, but as she reached over to search his pockets... I see you're reaching for a sleeping boy's clothes. What in the world is about to happen next? Adults keep playing like, but your kids better press the B button, okay? What? I don't know if this is actually Junko or another Monokuma. Mukuro turned toward the familiar voice and saw Monokuma standing before her.
You're all alone with Makoto right now. Just think of me as a cute wild animal and let your lust lead the way.
As the headmaster, I must
prevent any illicit sexual relationships, but physical education classes are just fine, Missy.
Though he looked just like the one that was at the gym, it was clearly a different Monokuma. Multiple Monokumas had been placed throughout the entire academy, so it wasn't a stretch for him to suddenly appear out of nowhere. Regardless, the same person was controlling all of them. Mukuro had been wary of Monokuma attacking her while she was treating Makoto's wounds. But his appearance at this particular moment seemed to take her by surprise. Junko? Asked Mukuro cautiously. Monokuma tilted his head along with his entire upper body inquisitively.
Junko? Who's that? Junko. I've never heard of that country before.
No more jokes. Answer me, Junko. You were planning to kill me earlier, right?
Junko this, Junko that! What's your problem? I'm telling you, I'm Monokuma! You must be a big disappointment if you can't even remember something like that. You're not just a disappointment as a person, you're a disappointment as a sister, too. You're too skinny, and your brain is nothing but muscles, and your personality is just unbearable.
I'm sorry, said Mukuro. She didn't need to apologize, but hearing her sister call her a disappointment yet again was enough to make the ultimate soldier recoil. Monokuma ignored her and in her current situation, climbed on top of Makoto's barely breathing body, and began poking his cheeks.
So what are you gonna do with Makoto now?
I can imagine him just like walking over, just staring, but not even like on the body, even though that's what it says, and just constantly poking him while like staring up at her. Just one tiny fist just pushing into his face.
What are you gonna do with Makoto now? I'm really interested in human mating habits, you know.
What are you? Asked Mukuro before trailing off. Monokuma lowered his tone and began whispering into her ear.
Makoto's a pretty nice guy, huh? He even sacrificed himself to save you. He's so generous that it's actually hopeless.
He's not dead yet, insisted Mukuro. Despite her firm tone, she couldn't hide the fear lingering in her voice.
That's the most disappointing thing about you. You can't even say, I won't let him die.
I won't let him die, Junko. Mukuro could barely get a word in as Monokuma erupted in poos and and continued to torment her.
As if you could do that. Too bad. No regrets. See you tomorrow.
I don't know.
Is this all because Makoto was the first person to smile at you? You, a disappointing, depressing, unladylike, inhuman, killing machine! Despite denying that he was Junko,
Despite denying that he was Junko, Monokuma began speaking at length about Mukuro's past. This contradiction was very much like Junko, and Mukuro was so shaken that that all she could do was watch the bear prattle on and on.
Only the fit survive in this world. The only thing that kind-hearted people can do is die, you know? As proof, you're gonna watch Makoto die really soon.
He won't die. Mukuro's tone of voice had become irregular ever since she took off her Junko wig. Aside from her conversation with Makoto, everything she said as Junko was from a script that her sister had written. But now there was no script for Mukuro to rely on anymore. Mukuro was treating Monokuma like she would treat her own sister. If the other students saw her acting so weak, they'd never believe she was the same person who fought Sakura in the gym. And not just that, if anyone from her mercenary past could see her now, her stark change in attitude might make them think that she was someone else entirely. Monokuma continued to rail against Mukuro.
Nope, he's gonna die. I know it's sad, but you just have to face the facts.
Monokuma wriggled his thumbs and his limbs and danced around, then pointed right at Mukuro's face.
Because Makoto is going to die by your hands.
Huh?
Infighting among the terrorists. The big bad terrorist silences the weak-willed Makoto before he can leak any information. Doesn't that happen all the time? In the end, all the desperate things you said in the gym turned out to be lies! You told just to escape.
Mukuro frowned at Monokuma. You can't do that, Junko. I won't let you do that! As she blurted out those words in a trembling voice, Mukuro was gripped with confusion about what she had just said. Am I defying Junko right now? Why? It was a strange feeling. To Mukuro, it was like she was standing on the ledge of a tall building and imagining what would happen if she jumped. A destructive feeling, akin to holding a friend's baby and wondering what would happen if you tripped and fell. Before she knew it, fear and anxiety had suddenly taken control of Mukuro's heart. By the way, if you ever do that, try and make yourself fall on your back. As a member of Fenrir, and as an ultimate despair, Mukuro had killed innumerable people. She had handled live grenades before. She descended from the sky in a parachute as anti-aircraft weaponry fired all around her. Her heart never wavered on the battlefield, but now it felt like it could collapse at any second. Monokuma, however, was as stable as a tree and slightly tilted his head to the side.
Huh? Weren't you listening to my story? I'm not the one who's gonna kill Makoto. You are.
What are you saying, Junko? Monokuma began giving a strange explanation to the very fused Mukuro.
Do you know what the suspension bridge effect really means? It means you push the person you love off a bridge, and they'll be yours for eternity.
I haven't heard that at all.
Life doesn't always follow what your textbooks say. It's sad, but that's what love is.
His words made no sense, and Mukuro couldn't think of anything to say as she stood there dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Monokuma continued his little speech, intentionally saying things that meant to antagonize Mukuro.
Basically, this is your big chance, you know? If you kill Makoto right here and now, nobody will ever take him away from you again. Makoto Naegi, dead by dawn.
The last name he ever spoke was Mukuro. Oh, no, this is still in script. Okay.
The last name he ever spoke was Mukuro Ikusaba. The last person he ever smiled at was Mukuro Ikusaba. Doesn't that sound wonderful?
There was a certain appeal to Monokuma's twisted suggestion, and Mukuro found herself unsure of her own judgment. This is wrong. It has to be wrong. But it's really Junko saying all this, so doesn't that mean it's right? No. This isn't Junko, it's Monokuma. Monokuma.
Are you sure you want to help Makoto? Once he gets better, he's gonna know everything. He'll know what you did to your classmates. I can't believe you would actually erase your friends' memories of their time together and force them to kill each other. Makoto might get mad at you and say, our real enemy isn't the bear, it's her. Do you really want him to blame you for this?
Mukuro's face turned pale.
Or are you going to kill the others? If everyone except you and Makoto dies, you'll be able to spend the rest of your school life together. We can't hold a class trial with only 2 people. It might be a good idea if you both live the rest of your lives in this academy forever.
No, that's wrong.
And what are you gonna do if his memory returns? If his memories return? It's not like you were dating Makoto or anything. You were just watching him from afar the whole time.
Oh. Did she have a thing for Makoto?
Man, you're so shy. You can't shoot people's hearts and brains. You can shoot people's hearts and brains, no problem. But you can't even woo some stupid boy into liking you. You want to know who Makoto had a crush on before his memories were taken away?
Okay, so she really did have something. If Junko's saying something like this to Mukuro. Mukuro trembled as Monokuma continued pressing the issue, gradually loosening the screws, keeping her heart secure. So Mukuro chose to pretend she didn't hear anything at all. All emotion vanished from her face, and she looked silently for Makoto's e-handbook.
If you're looking for his blood type, it's not written in the handbook.
Mukuro's face turned pale. Within 5 seconds, her plan to ignore Monokuma had already failed. O positive blood. Everything. Yeah. Yes. The universal donor, yeah.
But, since your headmaster is made up of 50% kindness, I'll tell you anyway. Makoto's blood type is B.
As soon as she heard him say that, all the anxiety, horror, hostility, malice, and dread churning within Mukuro had completely vanished. Thank you, Junko. Mukuro's eyes sparkled without a hint of suspicion, so she turned back to Monokuma without a hint of suspicion. Oh, fuck. This is how it's gonna end up. She's gonna end up killing, Makoto with the wrong blood because that's what she thought was right, without a hint of suspicion, and walked toward the refrigerator containing the blood packs. Fresh blood packs should have been prepared before the plan took effect. They'll last in cold storage for 21 days. They should still be good. Despite her emotionless face, Mukuro let herself feel a small amount of satisfaction as she took a blood pack from the refrigerator. As Monokuma watched her, his normally emotionless eyes twitched ever so slightly. If a third party could see his face right now, or even if the other students could see his face right now, they'd wonder, is Monokuma surprised? That's right. They'd have the same shocked look on their face as if they were seeing Monokuma for the first time. That moment, a whisper crept out of Monokuma's emotionless face. There should be a limit to how disappointing you can be. It was far quieter than a mosquito's wings. Even with her battle-hardened hearing, Mukuro couldn't hear what he said. Monokuma shook his head, and the voice returned to normal.
It's not like I care that you, the ultimate despair, has hope in anything. It's not like I expected much from you to begin with, so this will at least help me feel despair. But seriously, you disappoint me. Just so you know, despair and disappointment are completely different things, okay? They're as different as bears and pandas!
What are you? Mukuro's body started to shake as she turned back to look at Monokuma. All this reading is making air go into my lungs and making me hiccup. And my stomach, really. He hadn't started talking any different than usual. Junko hadn't turned off the voice modulator and started talking... talking in her real voice or anything. And yet, Mukuro was utterly terrified. She was terrified on instinct. Not as a soldier. Half the reason she was terrified was because of her instincts as the ultimate despair. And the other half was because she was Junko's older sister. Even through Monokuma, her instincts were telling her that Junko was annoyed with her. Junko? Why are you annoyed? Is it because I betrayed you? Or is it because I didn't die like you wanted me to?
Ugh!
Sulked Monokuma.
I'm beyond annoyed. I'm really, really angry! And I'm really, really disappointed right now! I'm so pissed I could take a rage nap right now!
Monokuma's anger didn't seem any different from his usual anger toward the students, but Mukuro could instinctively sense another emotion mixed with it. Right now, she could feel that Junko was feeling hopeless disappointment. It's normal for someone who's disappointed to lose hope, but for ultimate despair, disappointment means something else entirely. To them, disappointment was tantamount to losing despair itself. Mukuro was a member of Ultimate Despair. At her sister's behest, Mukuro had soiled her hands many times in order to fill the world with despair. Despite her pride toward being a member of Ultimate Despair, there's a clear difference between Mukuro and her sister. Junko Enoshima was despair incarnate. She was born in despair, letting it infect other people's hope so it could rot them from the inside out, twisting them into her own image. Okay, so I mentioned this in, like, the last trial. No one is born evil, but if this is her skill, the ultimate despair, but she's the ultimate fashionista as well. She was born the ultimate despair. I guess that would make sense, because everyone is born with their talent. It doesn't just come through hard work or some shit into her own image. For Junko, feeling hope was its own despair. Creating despair in others created despair in herself, which caused her to feel both intense pain and intense bliss. Junko had walked the fracture created from the conflict between pleasure and penance all her life. Eventually, the fracture would widen until it swallowed the world and tore it in half. But Mukuro, on the other hand, had neither hope nor despair for the world. At least, not when she was a member of Fenrir. Ever since she was a child, Mukuro believed she was meant to spread despair because of her sister. She didn't harbor any ill will toward the world. She simply accepted that she was meant to spread despair, and chose to walk the same path as her sister. Just a tool. The doubt she felt was only a recent development. When Junko told her about the plan, As she watched the world burn at the hands of terrorists wearing Monokuma masks, she never wavered once. However, as soon as she heard about her sister's plan to make their classmates kill each other, Makoto included, a strange feeling began to stir within her. Yeah, it's definitely Makoto. Why Makoto? Because even Junko was like that. A strange feeling began to stir within her. What started as a seed of doubt soon grew into a thorny vine ensnaring Mukuro's feet. I know it was thorny, but it makes sense as well. As soon as she disguised herself as Junko and finished meeting with the other students, as soon as she had confirmed that everyone's memories had been completely taken away, that vine began tightening around Mukuro's heart. They're gone. Junko's the only one who knows about me now. That's it. But that's no problem. It's just like old times. Things will never go back to how they used to be, but that's fine. This should be fine. She had relinquished the past 2 years she had spent with her friends so she could betray them and deliver death and despair unto them. Though her heart ached, Mukuro was beyond feeling guilt or remorse for her actions. But the question, why does my heart ache like this, still remained unanswered. Perhaps that's why she spent so much time talking to Makoto when she was in the nurse's office. And when Makoto gave her that one particular answer, something changed inside her. In return, I promised that if I do decide to kill someone, it won't be you. Yeah, specifically him. The words Mukuro blurted out to Makoto weren't improvised to further her role as Junko. It was an honest sentiment from the bottom of her heart. She was even planning to ask Junko herself if Makoto could somehow be spared from her plan. Damn, she had it bad! Over the past 2 years, Mukuro's interest had been slowly shifting away from her sister and toward the world itself. By extension, her interests also included Makoto, the first person to ever smile at her and make her feel connected to the world. He was like a sapling of pure honesty that had taken root in Mukuro's heart. But by the time she realized that, the tree had already rotted. As Mukuro struggled to understand the situation, Monokuma let out a sigh and said,
I wonder which part of you is a wolf anyway. You're just a dog that blindly follows Junko's orders. What does the tattoo on your hand even mean? Are you just a bitch who's pledged her loyalty to her owner? I bet Toko would say that. I'm positive.
Monokuma continued to talk as Mukuro stood in confusion.
I was obviously lying when I said Makoto's blood type is B.
What? Cried Mukuro. You lied? Junko!
A normal person would have been suspicious. I never thought you'd actually believe me just now. I must have misplaced my eyes because I totally did not see that coming. Not even with my ability to predict the future. How shocking. Jeez, I'm about to start crying my eyes out like some sort of robot cat. Seriously.
It's gotta be a Doraemon thing. It's gonna be okay, Junko, said Mukuro. I know our plan kind of fell apart, but I'm still on your side.
Are you feeling alright?
Are you feeling alright? Because I'll do anything.
Snap!
A harsh sound came from Monokuma's mouth. What? Monokuma's mouth?
That sound was one of my circuits overloading. It's been so long since I felt this angry. Meet me in the roof of the school. I'll smash it I'll smash.
Jesus Christ.
I'll smash out all of your baby teeth.
Monokuma started shadowboxing in front of Mukuro, who remained frozen in place, clutching a blood pack in her hand. She still looked confused, and Monokuma threw up his arms in frustration.
You're so disappointing I can't even predict it anymore. Roar!
A threatening roar burst from Monokuma's mouth as he leapt at Mukuro with his sharp claws extended. At that moment, her face became completely emotionless. It was not a conscious action. The defensive instinct she honed during this time, during her time with Fenrir, temporarily suppressed her emotions as she countered Monokuma's attack. Mukuro grabbed a nearby IV stand and used it to parry Monokuma's claws. However, Monokuma's claws seemed to be made with a special alloy and easily sliced the bar in half diagonally. But instead of following up his attack, Monokuma continued talking to Mukuro.
I guess you're not much of a disappointment when it comes to fighting. In fact, if you were so pathetic you died from a single attack, that would have been interesting in its own way. But right now, you're just incompetent at everything.
I'm sorry, said Mukuro. Couldn't help blocking your attack. But there's no way I can fight you, Junko. After all, I'm all you have. I'm the only one who understands you at all. Mukuro's words were riddled with endless dismay. The contrast between her usual stoic self and the way she was acting now was so stark, people might assume she had multiple personalities. However, Monokuma just quietly stared at her. He was perfectly still, as if all his functions had powered down completely. But Mukuro continued to share her feelings.
There's no way I can just leave you alone.
Oh wait, no, this is Mukuro. There's no way I can just leave you alone. And then Monokuma broke his silence. But at that moment, a monitor in the nurse's office lit up, displaying a girl's face. Junko Enoshima. Is it just in here or is it everywhere? Because as far as I know, everywhere gets lit up at the same time. At the same time, a voice completely unlike Monokuma's began to play from the speakers.
Hey, Mukuro.
Junko! It had been several days since Mukuro had heard her sister's real voice. Though her face remained emotionless, excitement sparkled in her eyes. However, that shine immediately dulled. I'm grateful to you, Mukuro. I mean it. Junko's voice emanating from the speakers sounded very gentle and kind. I don't know which one she's putting on, so I'm just gonna go with anything. Junko? I'm really sorry. I said so many mean things to you. I even tried to kill you earlier, and I was about to make you do something horrible just now. Even though I know about your feelings toward Makoto. You don't have to force yourself. Even if you didn't notice it, it was totally obvious to anyone looking at you. You never cared about the class photos, but when Makoto said he was going to take one, you made sure you were facing the camera. I'm gonna go back through those photos again, even the one in the anime, and see if that has anything to show about it. And then Junko Enoshima, the ultimate despair, flashed a smile. A pure, sweet smile. On the monitor, she looked like a normal high school girl teasing her older sister. And yet Mukuro could feel despair and anxiety encasing themselves around her. I thought that you should have tried hard to take pictures... Wait, what? I always thought you should have tried hard to take pictures with Makoto. But I guess that's what makes you so disappointing. Still, even though you're disappointing and annoying, I still love you. I want to reread that first line, by the way. I always thought you should have tried hard to take pictures with Makoto. There we go. Mukuro trembled upon hearing those words. I love you. That's all she ever wanted to hear her sister say. Mukuro believed. No matter what Junko said, she believed she really loved her. She believed she was the only one who could truly understand the despair known as Junko Enoshima. Damn, I am tired. She was naive. As soon as she heard Junko say, I love you, Mukuro realized she never completely understood her sister. It was only at this moment that Mukuro finally understood her sister's feelings. Junko's words right now were kind. Perhaps that kindness was completely honest. The words, I love you, might have been true as well. However, for Junko Enoshima, this was her way of saying goodbye. She was severing the ties between them. It was painfully clear to Mukuro. And then, before she could even say anything, the girl in the monitor made a remark that cut Mukuro to the bone. I'm sure someday you'll make your dreams come true. Ultimate Despairs never talked to each other like this. A simple truth stabbed into Mukuro's heart. Junko had no further use for her. Her own sister was parting ways with her. Mukuro had dedicated over 10 years of her life to cause the ultimate despair, and at this moment, it all counted for nothing. For those 10 years, Jesus Christ. I think I'm, misreading a bunch of shit because I am, like running on low or something like that. But those years no longer mattered to Mukuro. Her sister's rejection was more than enough to send her into the depths of despair. That's why Mukuro, even now, clung to a small sliver of hope. Meanwhile, Junko was still on the monitor. Yeah, right. Did you really think I'd say something that nice? You're so annoying. Can't you just hurry up and disappear already? Mukuro hoped Junko would say something like that. She hoped she'd start verbally abusing her again, or call her useless and incompetent. Mukuro was no masochist, but she'd prefer to be showered with bullets and contempt than endure this kind of emotional pain. But I love you, Mukuro. Bye-bye. The monitor went black, leaving Mukuro to process the horrible goodbye she just received. And as if on cue, Monokuma started moving again.
Isn't family love so nice? By the way, did you know that in about half of all murder cases, the killer is a family member?
Monokuma spoke in his usual tone of voice, but it was unclear if his words were getting through to Mukuro. Mukuro let the blood pack in her hand fall to the floor, and tightened her grip on the iron bar she was still holding. Iron bar? You mean the one on the bed? Jesus Christ, I am hiccuping so much. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Junko, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. She mumbled quietly as if she were chanting a spell, and walked past the blood pack on the floor to Makoto's bedside with the iron bar in her hands. I'll do it properly. I'll make sure I do it. So...
Oh,
said Monokuma, perking up.
what are you gonna properly do to Makoto with that big thick rod you got there? You gonna do him? Or are you gonna do him in? Either way, I'm starting to feel some heart-throbbing excitement.
Mukuro looked as she had been completely broken. Monokuma walked closer to her with eager anticipation. Suddenly, Monokuma's body silently floated into the air.
Huh?
With no expression on his face, Monokuma tried to see what had just happened to him. And in the blink of an eye, an iron bar ripped through his body. Woohoo! There we go! The tip of the bar, which had been cut diagonally earlier into a sharp point, went straight through the Monokuma and stabbed into his surveillance camera. The lens was completely destroyed, and the camera shot out sparks as it broke down. The iron bar was still stabbed into the surveillance camera as Monokuma dangled from the other end. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but only static came out. A few seconds later, his functions came to a complete stop. Without making a sound at all, Mukuro had kicked Monokuma into the air. As soon as Monokuma's power source and his bomb circuit had perfectly aligned with the surveillance camera in the nurse's office, Mukuro plunged the iron bar into all three of them. No normal human has the skill to utilize such a technique. Not even an ultimate. All the hesitation within Mukuro had vanished. Her eyes sparkled with a panther stalking its prey at night. A tense aura surrounded Mukuro, even more so than she had thought Sakura earlier. Than when she had fought Sakura earlier. Ignoring Monokuma's lifeless form, she looked at Makoto as he breathed softly, and remembered her sister's parting words. So this is despair. She mumbled to herself. I'm so sorry, Junko. I never really understood what despair was. She spoke without emotion. Like a machine. But it's going to be alright now. I finally understand. Hidden within her, passions began to stir. So, I'll make sure I make you happy, Junko. I'll make sure I fill you with despair. I'll save Makoto. I'll make sure the others don't die. I'll let them escape from this place. I'll deal with the people on the outside too. You invested so much time and killed so many people for the sake of this plan. And I'll destroy every last remnant of it. For you. This was not an act of vengeance toward her sister who had abandoned her. This was an act of mercy. Stuck between the ultimate despair and the hope she had gained from Makoto, Mukuro was being refined into something that was unlike despair or hope. And she had no way of knowing where her path would lead. Over 10 minutes had passed. 10 minutes. The sound of the students leaving the gym and making their way to the nurse's office rang throughout the hall. Genocide Jack had continued to dodge Sakura's attacks with her tricky movements. But when Byakuya blurted out, "Enough already, you irritating pervert," Genocide Jack stopped in her tracks.
Oh my! Getting chewed out by my bespectacled Byakuya is making my masochistic side get all tingly. They say the line between sadism and masochism is paper thin, but in my case, it's more like a Venn diagram.
Words can't explain these hot waves of passion squirming from the top of my head to the tips of my toes.
As she rambled incoherently about Byakuya, the other students tied her up with a microphone cable from the gym and locked her up in her room. Half the students stayed behind to keep an eye on her, while the rest left to search the grounds of the school. As soon as the door to the nurse's office opened, Kyoko saw a malfunctioning Monokuma with a hole in its chest and the remains of a surveillance camera. It wasn't just in the nurse's office, though. On their way there, the students had seen several destroyed surveillance cameras and scattered Monokuma bodies. It was a clear violation of school regulations. But if Mukuro was allied with Monokuma, those regulations wouldn't apply to her anyway. The Monokuma inside the gym was no longer moving, and the students who had lost contact with the hacker, the Bashiki Madarai. I think that's gonna be literally the only name from Danganronpa 0. So the students assumed that Madarai had taken control of a different Monokuma and went after Mukuro on his own. With that in mind, Kyoko turned and looked inside the nurse's office once again. It was unusually quiet. The beds were empty, but Kyoko could see the bloodstains that someone had been resting there recently.
Looks like they're already gone.
Oh, this is Mondo.
Looks like they're already gone,
Mondo remarked, but as he was about to leave, Kyoko spoke up behind him.
I'm going to stay here with Chihiro and search for clues.
Huh?
Asked Chihiro with her timid eyes widened.
Clues?
Kyoko continued to speak in a calm tone of voice.
Yes. There may be some clues in these Monokuma remains. I figured you would be the best candidate for investigating machinery.
Sakura spoke up.
But isn't that dangerous?
Since Sakura could clearly hold her own in a fight with Mukuro, she had joined the other students in searching the school grounds. Kyoko shook her head and replied,
I'm sorry to say this, but if things get out of hand, Chihiro and I will just be in your way. I think it's better if we search for clues here instead of doing nothing. Besides, we might be able to use Monokuma's parts to detect any radio broadcast from the outside world.
You certainly have a point. Understood. We'll be exploring this floor for a while. Please shout for us if anything happens.
Sakura left the nurse's office.
How did she destroy Monokuma like this?
As Chihiro cautiously stood over Monokuma's remains, Kyoko started searching through the room. She zeroed in on one of the beds and began studying it intensely. A moment later, Kyoko was satisfied with what she found. and let out a small sigh before she spoke. Chihiro, let me apologize to you in advance.
Huh?
I dragged you into this gamble of mine, so if anything happens, run out of the hallway and call for help.
What does that mean?
But instead of answering Chihiro's question, Kyoko started talking to one of the empty beds. Like, is it split down the side and we're just in there together? Let me say this first. I'm prepared to hear your story. No matter how ridiculous it may sound, I promise not to decide if it's a lie or the truth until after I've listened to in its entirety. Chihiro looked confused. She didn't understand what Kyoko meant at all. The ultimate question mark lowered her eyes and turned to the ultimate programmer to make a request. Chihiro, does your laptop have a voice recording function? And do you also have a microphone?
Huh? Yeah.
I want you to use that to record everything we're about to hear.
But there's no one here.
As Chihiro wondered to herself, she began connecting Monokuma's parts to her laptop and turned on the record function. What laptop? We didn't get the laptop until the second... Yeah, the second chance. And even then, it still took a while for Chihiro to use it. Interesting.
I'm sure we'll pick up every sound in this room now,
said Chihiro nervously. Satisfied, Kyoko nodded and once again started talking to the empty bed. So what are you going to do if I told everyone that I found Makoto? When she heard Kyoko say that, Chihiro looked back at her and was surprised by what she saw. At that moment, the ultimate programmer was kneeling on the floor next to Monokuma's remains. From that position, she was able to see it. Of all the beds in the nurse's office, there was one bed in particular that couldn't be seen from the entrance. Underneath that bed lay a limp Makoto. A blood pack was hidden next to the bed and slowly providing Makoto with a transfusion. The contents of the blood pack were clear. Rather than blood, it seemed to be some kind of saline solution used in emergency hydration. Though it wouldn't be as effective as an actual blood transfusion, it was enough to keep him from going into shock. Though this was the extent of Chihiro's medical knowledge. Okay, so I'm definitely taking it all in as Chihiro. She was already surprised that Makoto had been in the nurse's office this whole time. Not only that, but Kyoko wasn't talking to the bed that Makoto was under, which sent chills throughout Chihiro's body. However, there was nobody under the bed that Kyoko was facing. But the moment Chihiro noticed that, a voice rang out from underneath it. As soon as everyone's attention was focused on Makoto, I was planning to take advantage of that opportunity to take someone hostage. As Chihiro cautiously lowered her head until it was nearly touching the floor, she was able to make out who was talking. Surprisingly, the person hiding there was clinging to the frame of the bed, like a ninja clinging to the ceiling. Presumably, if someone had glanced under the bed quickly, they wouldn't have noticed anybody was there. Though Chihiro had no idea how the person was able to hide under the bed for so long, she could at least understand that their strength was beyond normal human levels. There was no question that the person hiding under the bed was Mukuro Ikusaba. But you pretended not to notice. Why? Mukuro's voice was as cold as ice, but Kyoko didn't even flinch as she responded. Because I wanted to hear your side of the story. I knew you were hiding under that bed. Compared to the others, the frame was slightly more pronounced. Chihiro tried comparing the beds to see if this was the truth, but she couldn't even tell the difference at all. Only Kyoko's natural observation skills could let her see something like that. Mukuro seemed to come to a similar conclusion and appeared from under the bed without making a sound. Her face was stoic and cold. Compared to the bomb inside Monokuma, Chihiro thought she was even more terrifying. However, Mukuro ignored Chihiro and shifted her gaze at Kyoko. She leaned against the wall and let her arms fall to her sides as she threw out another question. Why do you want to hear what I have to say? Kyoko thought about this simple question for a while. as if she were searching within her own heart for the answer.
I have to provide an answer. It's because I wish to remain neutral.
Kyoko quietly looked down.
I'm currently missing most of my memories. I don't know who I am or what talent I had to be accepted into this school.
She could hear Chihiro gasp behind her, but Kyoko didn't mind and continued.
But even so, I believe I should listen to what you have to say. Regardless of whether you're good or evil, I must hear all the facts in order to know the truth. Good and evil don't matter. I'll come to a conclusion based on what I see and hear. I think that's the methodology that's been instilled into me.
I see. I completely forgot you were like that, Kyoko.
But before I listen to what you have to say, I'd like to ask you one question first.
What is it? Mukuro's reply was completely emotionless. Kyoko presented her question as if she were asking it of herself as well.
What was my talent that allowed me to attend this academy?
The answer to that question was simple. Kyoko, you're the ultimate detective. That answer marked a turning point for both girls.
Thank you. I have a better understanding of the situation now.
Kyoko slowly raised her head and presented a theory.
If my memory loss wasn't just a coincidence, then your group has the ability to erase people's memories. With that in mind, if we take into consideration the situation that unfolded in the gym earlier, I can only come to one possibility.
Possibility?
Yes. What you said to Byakuya when he thought that you were taking Toko hostage. You claimed that they met 2 years ago. It's possible that might actually be true.
The fact that Makoto called out Mukuro's name.
The things that Mukuro confirmed and denied. Genocide Jack's outlandish claims. These key factors that Kyoko noted using her special
observation skills were converging in her mind to form one answer.
It's possible that Byakuya and Toko's memories were also erased like mine, but I don't think their circumstances are quite the same as mine. But if our memories can be controlled so freely, it calls into question whether the day Monokuma appeared was really the same we entered the academy. Like you said, it's possible that we've known Toko Fukawa for the last 2 years.
What do you mean? Chihiro cried, still working on connecting her laptop to Monokuma's parts. Kyoko continued, speaking to both Chihiro and Mukuro.
We thought we were connected. We were knocked unconscious with sleeping gas the moment we arrived at the school. But it's possible that we were simply made to think that's what happened. For example, we may have already spent the last 2 years at Hope's Peak Academy, and our memories of that time were completely erased. It's even possible that we aren't even ultimates at all. Just random people who've been implanted with 16 years worth of false memories.
Very true, but who's to say? I don't know.
Though Kyoko's claim
sounded ridiculous, her face was completely serious. She looked up at Mukuro once again.
Which means, I'm considering the possibility that your crazy story is actually the truth.
Kyoko's declaration filled the room with silence. But she didn't let that silence overwhelm her. Kyoko cut through her own words.
Without evidence, all I can do is make hypotheses. That's why I want to hear what you have to say, Mukuro. I have no intention of blindly believing what you're going to say, or what that self-proclaimed hacker who took over Monokuma said.
She paused and lowered her eyes again, and declared with powerful determination.
Even so, I intend to come to a conclusion as fairly and objectively as I can. But I can only do that if you trust me and tell me the truth.
Kyoko's conviction was clear from her voice. Mukuro's eyes narrowed slightly, and a tapestry of emotion flashed across her face as she looked toward Kyoko. But when she opened her mouth, her expression and voice were completely devoid of emotion. That's right. I completely forgot. You were like that. Mukuro repeated this to herself softly, then faced Kyoko and declared, That must be why Junko took care to erase more of your memories compared to the others.
Very well.
I'll tell you everything. And after Mukuro placed Makoto back onto the bed, she began to mechanically tell a story. A story of a girl who wanted to fill the world with despair. A girl who only felt truly happy when she was filled with despair herself. A plan for despair that began 2 years ago, or perhaps even earlier than that. How the world was currently ruled by despair itself. Mukuro provided a brief summary of everything she knew about the plan. That's why it sounded even more outrageous than Kyoko had expected. And through her story, Kyoko was able to learn the truth about herself. Who she is, and why she came to the academy. The fate of the academy's real headmaster, Kyoko's father. As she listened to Mukuro's story, Kyoko remained silent the whole time. Her face went blank when she learned her father had died. Perhaps her memory loss and the absurdity of the situation helped lessen the impact somewhat. But there was no guarantee Kyoko would even believe her story. After Mukuro finished speaking, Kyoko stayed silent. With her unrivaled mental prowess, she was able to listen to Mukuro's story without interrupting her or dismissing it as nonsense. Mukuro continued. You don't have to believe me. After all, any pictures that could prove my story are with Junko. God, my nose is like numb from my voice and talking so much because my voice is at the perfect resonance with my face, is literally numbing my nose. Ugh. All I can do is talk. After she said that, Mukuro silently walked toward the entrance of the nurse's office. I have to sneeze. When she arrived at the door, she spoke again without looking back. But even if you don't believe me, you still listened to everything I had to say. So Kyoko, Chihiro, thank you. After apologizing in such in a strange tone of voice, she turned to the bed where Makoto lay, breathing weakly. Make sure Makoto stays rested. When he wakes up, make sure you give him some sports drinks from the dining hall or supply him room to drink. Or the supply room to drink. Gotcha. Please.
Of course, but
What are you going to do now? Asked Kyoko. Mukuro straightened herself up. Despair. I need to make Junko feel despair. Mukuro continued mumbling to herself as she opened the door. There's nothing else I can do.
no, there is something you can do.
Mukuro stopped walking as Kyoko spoke firmly.
Regardless of whether Monokuma is really Junko Enoshima or Bashiki Madurai, if you're dealing with him, you won't be able to lay a finger on Makoto.
I don't fully trust you, but if you're really concerned for Makoto's life, I was about to say health and then I switched to life,
I'm willing to work with you. Unlike Bashiki, who's probably abandoned him already. Right?
I'm sorry. I don't really work well with others. Mukuro looked away, then bowed her head as she left the nurse's office. But, I'll do my best. The doors closed and Mukuro was gone.
I'm sorry for involving you in something so dangerous, Chihiro.
Oh, that was weird. That one just came up. As she continued to organize the vast amount of information that Mukuro gave her, Kyoko turned to Chihiro, who was still working on Monokuma. As she trembled with fear, Chihiro slowly looked back at Kyoko.
Kyoko? About what Mukuro just said just now?
Chihiro's face turned pale as she struggled with her words, and Kyoko tried to calm her down.
We can't determine if anything she told us was true or not. There's no need to be afraid.
But Chihiro shook her head and returned to looking at her laptop.
I think she's telling the truth.
What are you basing that on?
Well, it looks like Monokuma is really being controlled from the outside.
Part of Monokuma's system had been connected to Chihiro's laptop. She was analyzing the data within its control system. And it was then that the ultimate programmer noticed something unusual about it. This control program. I thought it would be another year before
the system became fully operational.
Oh! Gotcha! There was a whole nother year. Gotcha! Woohoo! Chihiro started trembling so much she was unable to continue speaking.
We can't confirm that,
Said Kyoko, proposing another possibility to avoid jumping to conclusions.
It's possible that a similar program was being developed in secret.
But Chihiro admittedly shook her head and said,
No, that's not it. It just looks really familiar to me.
because she was working on it. Chihiro was working on it. Whatever. I'm using whatever was said last. Kyoko looked over Chihiro's trembling shoulders to peer at the screen, and that's when she noticed this program. Chihiro, did you create this? All the ultimate programmer could do was nod weakly. First floor, main hall. Goddamn, this thing is long. It's already been over 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yikes. This is definitely going to be a file that's in 720p. Otherwise, in 1080p, it's going to crash my computer when I edit it. When I add face cam. Mukuro continued moving forward and was fortunate enough to not encounter Sakura or Mondo. With no interference from anyone, she made her way to a hall as large as the gym and stood before the sealed main entrance. Suddenly, Monokuma popped out of the shadows to block her path. With this hall that resembled a nuclear bomb shelter, replete with all manner of heavy weaponry. Monokuma's silhouette was conspicuously out of place here. His laughter rang throughout the room as he wiggled his body from side to side.
What were you doing in the nurse's office? Did you eliminate your rival for Makoto's affections? Or did you help pave the matchmaker instead? Either way, don't you think it's kind of adorable to put Makoto and Kyoko in this kind of situation together? If this were a suspense film, those two would be the last standing couple. The last couple standing. But if this were a horror film, they'd just die anyway. The killer was alive all along. Splat goes the blood, plop goes the meat. I'm a huge fan of endings where the characters think they're gonna live, but they're really headed for a final destination.
That's actually kind of really hard to say. Destination. Speaking of which, no, I don't want to spoil anything. Because if I say it after that, that just says that right out. I was gonna recommend a movie, but then all that hope that you have would just go away. I gotta recommend it at some point in another playthrough or something.
Wait, what the hell is a tenation? What does that even mean?
Despite Monokuma's angry complaints, Mukuro remained unperturbed. She continued to stare icy daggers at Monokuma, as if she were waiting for him to finish speaking.
Well, anyway, I'm just so sad right now. A regulation-breaking delinquent is disrupting the harmony of this peace-filled academy. I can't even keep one of my students from running wild. Time to say goodbye to your incompetent headmaster. I'm gonna use Monokuma Evolution to become a big magnum headmaster and mold you into a decent student.
As soon as he said that, Monokuma extended his claws and waddled toward Mukuro. So?
I'm gonna mold you, and then I'm gonna kill you first.
Right as he finished speaking, Monokuma suddenly charged at Mukuro like a spiked volleyball. But Mukuro was faster and dodged Monokuma's attack. She jumped back, keeping her distance from Monokuma, just in case his claws could extend even longer. Just then, a shadowy figure appeared next to her. Mukuro twisted her body to its limits and just narrowly evaded the figure's attack. When she landed on the floor, she immediately saw...
So what does the immortal killer want, anyway? Are you gonna tell the others the truth and escape with them? Even though you know the outside world... Even though you know what the outside world is like right now?
two Monokumas were spreading. Oh, we're speaking to Mukuro in unison.
Honestly, I don't mind if you do that. I can just imagine the look on everyone's face when they discover the truth. It fills me with such heart-throbbing excitement.
The two Monokumas continue to speak in stereo sound.
You said to destroy my plans, but there's no happy ending waiting for you, no matter which route you take. And you only have yourself to blame for that.
Don't tell me you thought...
You don't tell me you thought they'd be grateful to you. Even if you guys escape here, you think they'll still forgive you when they get a whiff of that nasty air outside? Some of them might prefer to stay in the school, and some of them might resent you for being kind and showing them the truth. But then again, this is all your fault anyway, so it doesn't really matter what they think of you.
Monokuma made a little
mistake.
Despite facing down two Monokumas, Mukuro's expression didn't waver. She understood that controlling two Monokumas simultaneously was a piece of cake for Junko. Mukuro drew an arm-length metal bar that from seemingly nowhere, and readied herself. Okay, so suspension of disbelief. It was the remains of the IV. Okay, it was the remains of the IV stand from the nurse's office, sharpened into a pointed weapon. With her weapon in hand, Mukuro responded in a cold, mechanical tone. That's fine. I'm already used to that. None of her fear she felt when Monokuma suggested that Makoto would blame her appeared on her face. You know, this is the first one that has been, like, so blatant in that she had a crush on Makoto that I kind of wish that this was true. But then again, Mukuro's dead, and Sayaka's dead, and a bunch of others are dead too. None of the fear she felt when Monokuma suggested that Makoto would blame her appeared on her face. Her path was clear to her now, and she calmly issued her demand to Monokuma. Junko, open the gates. The shock of such a straightforward demand left both Monokumas momentarily speechless, but soon they replied,
Huh? Why?
So we can all leave together. Another straightforward answer, but both Monokumas faced each other and began gesturing as if they were whispering to one another. Mukuro knew their movements were intended to mock her. Unmoved, she continued to speak to Junko directly. I think they'll understand if I show them the outside world. And then they'll stop doubting Makoto.
You always find new ways to disappoint me, Mukuro. Did you forget why the school has an air filtration system?
It's true that the air outside is polluted, but I don't think it'll kill us immediately. Besides, it's better than being trapped in the school and forced to kill each other.
How can you be sure the others will go along with you? You know what I mean, right? Before the former headmaster got turned into space dust, he interviewed the others and they all agreed that they wanted to stay in the school. That was before their memories had even been erased. Do you really want to betray their wishes?
Mukuro blinked and slowly stepped forward. I don't really care about their feelings.
Huh?
You're all I need, Junko. So don't worry. I'm always watching over you. I'm always watching out for you. I'm going to make sure you feel despair. And I'm going to make Makoto and the others happy. If you want to revel in your own despair that badly, then I'll trust the hope Makoto gave me and take my chances with them instead of you. Mukuro's brief but powerful words caused the Monokumas to turn and talk to each other again.
Oh my.
Oh, no, this is just one of the Monokumas.
Oh my! This doesn't look good at all, Monokuma, eh? This child doesn't even realize her own hypocrisy. She's so dissatisfied that she's starting to reach critical mass. Right, Monokuma B?
The two Monokumas looked at Mukuro, who seemed ready to destroy them, and said,
What do you think, Monokuma C?
Mukuro was taken aback by their question. But her instinct suddenly kicked in and she immediately dodged away. At that moment, a third Monokuma, claws extended, passed by where her head had been previously. His new Monokuma unit landed with several spins and faced Mukuro, who had clung to the remains of a surveillance camera still attached to the ceiling.
I agree with both A and B.
The three Monokumas lined themselves up. To the students locked inside the academy, this sight would have been akin to a nightmare.
Right on!
The three units began speaking in perfect harmony as their six eyes looked at Mukuro. Suddenly, they each jumped away in three separate directions and kicked off one of the walls. The path of each unit's triangular attack all converged on a single point, Mukuro, who was still clinging to the ceiling. She was surrounded by razor-sharp claws coming at her from different directions. But this situation wasn't even a nightmare to Mukuro. Compared to the time she fended off three assassins who had invaded her camp one night back when she was still a member of Fenrir, this was nothing. This thought crossed Mukuro's mind as she dangled from the ceiling with one hand and thrashed her limbs around like a tornado. Intercepted by this move, the Monokumas fell to the floor with a loud crash. Mukuro landed on the ground and chased after one of them, brandishing her metal bar. Suddenly, she stopped moving and took a huge leap back. One of the Monokumas exploded with a defending roar. He had detonated the bomb inside of himself in an attempt to take Mukuro down with him. But thanks to her own battlefield instincts, Mukuro managed to avoid the explosion. She looked toward the hallway, expecting the explosion to have attracted the attention of Sakura and the others. But she didn't hear any footsteps approaching. Monokuma's voice rang from within the dense smoke.
Oh, you don't have to worry. I already told the other students to assemble in the cafeteria. They were eager to follow my orders after I told them I disarmed the poison gas, and that a special police unit was coming to get them. I'm pretty sure Kyoko and the others are all in the cafeteria by now. I'm sure Makoto is with them too. I doubt...
that has three, not just two. I don't remember if that's three Monokumas or just two, with the three quotation marks.
I doubt Sakura will get too rough with him, but I'm sure Byakuya will torture Makoto once he wakes up. I can just imagine him rubbing salt or pouring soy sauce into his wounds. Man, I'm getting all hot and bothered right now.
As she listened to Monokuma's overlapping voices, Mukuro tilted her head slightly and asked, I'm pretty sure they're gonna find out that you lied about that special police unit. Are you really okay with that?
No worries.
Oh, there's more gathering. Yeah, because that's more, quotation marks.
Once I've dealt with you, I don't care at all if they find out I was lying. You still don't get it? You're such a disappointment.
It suddenly dawned on Mukuro. Not the reason why Monokuma didn't care if the students found out he lied, but rather that the voices of Monokumas in the smoke were gradually increasing in number. As the smoke started to clear, the shadows of three Monokumas appeared. The one that exploded couldn't have revived, so a new one must have come to take its place. There's no way Mukuro only heard three Monokumas talking just now. As if to prove her hearing had been accurate, the Monokumas suddenly made their move. The three Monokumas bent over and began twirling their upper bodies. From behind them, new Monokumas emerged, like after images brought to life. The second row of Monokumas mimicked the earlier ones, with only one frame of delay, revealing even more Monokumas behind them. Eventually, Mukuro realized that there were 3 rows containing 10 Monokumas each. Damn. Okay, interesting way to show that there's a lot of them.
Did you know that this is called the circle dance?
Monokuma's 30 voices spoke in perfect harmony as they divulged information that had nothing to do with the current situation. Mukuro already knew that multiple Monokumas were positioned throughout the academy, but only Junko knew how many Monokumas actually existed. Mukuro had no way of knowing if these 30 Monokumas were part of a larger contingent. The flock of two-tone teddy bears, nice, continued to twirl around. Mukuro felt like she was being bombarded with hypnotic images. But faced with the abnormal sight, the ultimate soldier remained calm and maintained her focus. She was nothing like the girl who had panicked earlier in the gym when Makoto was impaled. As she stood before 30 emissaries of despair, she slowed her breathing and allowed her heart rate to accelerate. It was an instinct, not fear or panic, that sent her blood racing throughout her body, speeding up the reaction time of her cells. As her senses sharpened, the Monokumas began speaking to her again.
Don't worry, I'll make sure Makoto doesn't die! As long as everyone lives, I can reset their memories as many times as I want. That's right! All your effort, hopes, and dreams and determination are going right in the garbage heap!
The Monokumas took turns speaking in groups of 10, as if the mastermind controlling the Monokumas wanted to show off their ability to manipulate them. However, the ultimate soldier knew what the true purpose was behind all this. Was. She strained her ears to the limit and noticed a certain sound hidden among the Monokuma's voices. Mukuro's face remained perfectly still as she kicked off the floor. The moment she moved to the side, a roaring sound shook the entrance hall. The ceiling-mounted turrets in front of the gate started raining bullets down on Mukuro. The Monokumas were just the mastermind's decoy while she tried to blow her away. As if further trapping the Monokumas charged at Mukuro through the storm of bullets. Mukuro guessed that the mastermind programmed their movements in advance so they wouldn't get hit by a single bullet. She ran for the gates, evading waves of bullets and claws every step of the way, programming 30 Monokumas and 2 turrets while also predicting Mukuro's escape route. This would be considered impossible for anyone, but Mukuro knew it was possible for Junko. As ultimate despair, she possessed despair-inducing abilities that surpassed the capabilities of any normal human. Her display of power was only for filling Mukuro with despair. Despair. The scene playing out in front of Mukuro was brimming with despair. The adorably deadly Monokumas laughed and danced like reapers as bullets whizzed through the air. It was despair to the point of absurdity, and it was all for Mukuro. In the presence of such despair, Mukuro felt a strange serenity. For me? Junko's doing all this? For me? Junko, are you watching me right now? In the end, perhaps Mukuro really was a disappointment. She clenched her fists. Junko, thank you. The sound of gunfire overshadowed her whisper, and Mukuro fell completely silent. As a member of the Ultimate Despair, Mukuro's heart was filled with joy. Though she was filled with emotion, her eyes had lost their sparkle. Gotcha. Silence filled the air. Even the gunfire from the turrets seemed to stop for a moment. But that was only an illusion to the one controlling Monokuma. Something strong enough to silence the gunfire and avoid being picked up by the sensors spread through the school, with Mukuro at the center. I'll make sure I do this right. With that final thought, she closed her mouth and turned off her emotions. As she ran through the waves of scorching bullets, the air around her began to grow colder. As the coolness spread into her heart, it began to beat in a mechanical fashion. Several seconds later, Mukuro's body and mind melted together and became one with her surroundings. Her temperature now dominated the battlefield. Despair, bullets, and the Monokumas filled the area. Mukuro predicted their movements and jumped into the air without any hesitation. One of the Monokumas jumped at her, but she avoided his attack, kicked his body, and launched herself into midair. Bullets pierced through the space Mukuro was previously occupying, striking the falling Monokuma right through its internal bomb. The impact of the bullet caused it to explode, sending fiery Monokuma parts everywhere. As she rode the blast wave, Mukuro balanced herself in midair as she kicked away 3 Monokumas that leapt after her. this is fun and all, and I can kind of imagine it. Like, I can see it all in my head as best as I can. But, like, is this really all that necessary? She moved so gracefully as she was practically flying. In contrast, the Monokumas threw themselves into the path of oncoming bullets, exploding one after another. Some of them exploded near the main entrance, but their blasts didn't even leave a scratch. With full control over the entrance hall, Mukuro evaded bullets and confirmed that the bombs inside Monokuma weren't enough to destroy the door. But she refused to stop. Mukuro needed to get information on what she must do to escape the academy. She had no desire to kill Junko. Mukuro wanted to fill Junko with despair by instilling hope into the future of Makoto and the other students. That was Mukuro's ultimate goal. Get information. In contrast to her determination, her mouth stayed shut. But this did not mean Mukuro was not currently speaking to Junko. This situation, this battle of death and destruction, was a conversation of sorts for Mukuro. All she knew how to do was fight. She thought she wasn't interested in anything else. She thought she didn't need anything else. All Mukuro needed to be was a sword to fulfill her sister's desire for despair. That purpose alone was the crux of her existence, and she lived her entire life convincing herself that she couldn't do anything else. That's why power was like a language to Mukuro. A battle to the death revealed more about her heart than mere words ever could. Her words were in the wind of savagery that blows across the battlefield, uprooting others who also speak the language of violence. This was true even against her sister. When Junko could barely berate her sister, Mukuro couldn't talk back. All she could do was cower and apologize. Profusely. Why am I getting a call? Alright, excuse me. Alright, that call was not necessary. Great. All she could do was cower and apologize profusely. But it's different now. The first time Junko was using a language her sister actually recognized. The child of despair who tore the world apart was speaking to her sister with the language of power. Mukuro's heart filled with joy. For that reason, she strengthened her focus on her conversation with Junko, and that emotion began to gradually disappear. On this frigid battlefield, Mukuro continued her heated conversation. Endless rounds of despair fired from the school's turrets. Okay, this is getting too fucking extensive. Just say what the fuck is going on. I don't need this wordplay for this. It's already been fucking 2.5 hours of this alternate thing. And we've literally been in 5 locations. Makoto's room, the nurse's office, technically twice, the gym, and here, and what was the other location? I don't remember. Just 4, I guess. Yeah, we've only been in 4 locations. Maybe in my head I was counting the nurse's office the second time as another time, but oh well. And it's taken this long. School's turrets. But Mukuro's words intercepted every last violent shot that threatened to shatter her body and mind in half. She quickly realized that the Monokumas hadn't decreased in number at all, no matter how many she kept destroying. Not only that, she noticed that more Monokumas had been joining the fray until there were nearly 50 of them for Mukuro to fight. But Mukuro's resolve wouldn't break so easily. As she continued to wield her power, her heart began to fill with something that was neither hope nor despair. She learned despair from being abandoned by Junko. She learned hope from her acts of violence. For Mukuro, who had no interest in this world, this small space in front of the gate was a reflection of her life, a representation of her perfect world. A disappointing girl, filled with endless disappointment, who knew of no other way to live, continued her lonely dance. She surrounded herself to the rhythm of despair, which accompanies the music of hope. Plus, I'm not getting any, voice acting. I'm doing it all myself. I'm just getting a single panel and then a bunch of text. I'm literally just reading a book. So, this is really annoying for me. I like reading, but I like reading at my own time and my own pace. This is really, really fucking aggravating me. Accompanies the music of hope. Computer room's innermost area, Monokuma room. Jesus Christ, how much time had passed? The surveillance cameras at the gates were capturing footage of countless Monokumas falling at the hands of a child who fought like a raging demon. The Monokumas bolstered their numbers, and now 100 of them were trying to sink their claws into Mukuro. Most of them were running on autopilot, reacting to her movements based on prior information that they had received in advance. But despite standing before hundreds of mechanical adversaries, Mukuro's face showed no fear. She hadn't sustained a single injury, giving her a presence that was nearly divine to behold. Though Sakura Ogami was powerful enough to injure her arm, seriously, like, this game at least had the aspect of knowing that people needed to take breaks, so they included, like, midway points to read. So what is going on with this? Why is this so long? Though Sakura Ogami was powerful enough to injure her arm, Mukuro in her current state could potentially fight Sakura to a draw now, without relying on firearms. She took complete control of the battlefield, taking in her surroundings as if they were a part of herself. She dodged attacks from the rear as though she had eyes on the back of her head, and stabbed through Monokuma's weak points with her metal bar. No matter where the attacks came from, Mukuro deflected them all as if her skin were covered with eyes. Describing her as ultimate no longer did her justice. Mukuro had transcended the boundaries of humanity and became a pure killing machine, I guess. But despite that, even though she surrounds the ludicrous power her sister possessed, Junko was not afraid. She felt not one iota of fear. I think it's iota. After all Junko can feel is despair. She even started to admire her sister's attempt to fill her with despair, but that sentiment quickly filled Junko with an orgiastic ecstasy of despair. Junko knew. She knew that Mukuro was neither hope nor despair. She was just a phenomenon. A disappointing girl who no longer understood herself, who only knew how to be violent because it was all she could believe in anymore. Mukuro had become an avatar of destruction beyond that of any military force. She couldn't even be considered a soldier anymore. She was a natural disaster, like a typhoon or a tornado. Or perhaps, like gravity, she was now a fundamental force of the universe that only existed to bring despair to Junko. I did like this at first, but now it's just, like, it's treading into the ground of overpowered, MC in, like, manga and anime, and I don't fucking like that. I've always hated overpowered shit, and especially ones that take themselves seriously, like this one and Sword Art Online. The only one that I like, that a lot of people do, is One Punch Man, because it takes the shit out of everything else that takes itself seriously. So this is driving me away now. Despair to Junko. The mastermind enjoyed watching her sister go all out. If Mukuro destroyed everything and ruined her life, Junko would still be comforted by the despair. She could just go right ahead and overpower her. Junko considered this for a few seconds until a familiar, hopeless habit reared its head. Her habit of getting so bored that it made her sick. The girl who had been grinning as she watched the screen now bore a look of calm stoicism, and she reached the microphone connected to Monokuma's speakers. Also, I want to make a note. I don't remember ever hearing about in the second game. Obviously, the first game I did hear that, but I don't remember how Hajime would have heard that Junko gets bored of getting bored. Connected to Monokuma's speakers. Mukuro was no longer human anymore, but Junko knew how to bring her back. It was a simple feeling, really, and with that hopeless feeling for Mukuro in mind, the mastermind said just one word. Mukuro. I don't know if that was sing-songy or just matter of fact, Mukuro. In front of the main entrance, I can see that. Jesus Christ. Mukuro. That voice. It was calling her name. Instead of using Monokuma's voice filter, Junko's natural voice was coming out of a Monokuma unit. That's all it took. With one word, Mukuro Ikusaba stopped being a force of nature and became a person again. Monokuma would not miss this opportunity. As if moving to the beat of Mukuro's shaking heart, a torrent of claws leapt to attack her. But Mukuro trusted her instincts and twisted her entire body to fend off the attacks, leaving her with only a few scrapes here and there. But the despair wasn't over yet. The ultimate despair didn't hide any time making her next move. Mukuro, watch out! Huh? As soon as Mukuro heard that voice, her mind went completely blank. There was no mistaking it. That was Makoto's scream. But is that coming from Junko? Mukuro, watch out! A scream that saved her from the spears of Gungnir and changed her destiny. The scream that saved her... why does it end with a period? No, that's wrong. It took her 1/10 of a second to realize that that voice was a sound clip that Junko had replayed. Okay. But it was more than enough time to drag Mukuro, who had regained her humanity, into despair. Right when she recovered from her moment of shock, Monokuma appeared behind her and roundhouse kicked her into the temple. So what about the bullets then? She twisted her head to roll with a blow, but at that moment, a different Monokuma attacked her from the opposite side with a headbutt. And as soon as Mukuro dodged that attack, 3 Monokumas launched simultaneous drop kicks and knocked her to the ground. The fact that they weren't using their claws meant they weren't trying to kill Mukuro right away. Before she could stand up again, dozens of Monokumas waiting for her on the floor climbed on top of Mukuro and pinned her limbs. One of the Monokumas waddled over to Mukuro as she lay face down on the floor and laughed. A pretty
girl getting pinned by all 3 of me's. I wonder if I should feel more excited about this. Don't make that face. If I wanted to kill you, I'd just pump you full of bullets right now. But I don't think the audience watching this on TV would like that ending very much. I need to make sure I'll do it in the right way this time.
What are you planning to do to me? Mukuro asked in her emotionless voice. Monokuma guffawed and answered.
Nothing. I'm just gonna stick to the original plan and make you play the killing game at this school. I'll erase everyone's memories again, and I'll just make them redo the introduction and the entrance exam ceremony again.
In typical Monokuma fashion, he leaned his face toward Mukuro.
But it'd be boring if we had to redo everything. Maybe this time I'll have you participate as Mukuro Ikusaba. I'll take away even more of your memories like I did with that irritating detective girl. You'll just be a poor little girl with no memory at all.
As Monokuma talked and wiggled his body from side to side, the other Monokumas danced and twirled around. Amid this fantastical scene, Monokumas continued to describe his hopeless plan in a nonchalant manner. Also, if all of this is going on at the same time and there's bullets and bombs going off, where the fuck are the rest of the kids? This is so fucking stupid. Wouldn't they just hear it and be like, even after the first one?
At first, you'll be the girl with amnesia, and everyone will feel sorry for you. But as they unravel the mystery of this academy, they'll find out who you really are. It's exciting to think how they'll treat you when that happens. Knowing you, you'll probably kill someone purely on instinct. Maybe I should rethink my rules about self-defense.
You can't. Her memories would be erased. There was nothing she could do about her classmates hating her. But losing her childhood memories would mean her connection to Junko would be severed as well. Even if Mukuro had no interest in the world, that was unbearable even for her. This has got to be, Monokuma.
I've heard of New Game Plus before, but this is the first time I've heard of New Game Minus. Should I tie you up for fun? Or maybe should make this game even more masochistic. Forget hard mode, very hard mode, and inferno mode. Wanna just skip ahead to impossible mode? Maybe I'll erase your memories after I drag you on a motorcycle, pummel you with 1,000 baseballs, burn you to the stake, and crush you with an excavator.
Mukuro knew what Monokuma was talking about. He was describing the tools that they had prepared, the various executions they had planned for the students. After everyone introduces themselves, they'll walk around the school
Grounds and eventually find a flat-chested girl with amnesia, covered in bandages with Fenrir's tattoo on her right hand. I'd bet a certain fan base might get off on that.
What? Okay, weird.
If this were a game, that would increase sales by 500%!
I don't get what's going on, but oh well. Though Monokuma sounded like he was joking, everything he said was deadly serious.
As evidence,
Mukuro heard a rumbling sound off in the distance.
Now then, your sweet ride is on its way.
Based on the engine's noise, Mukuro surmised that it was the large motorcycle that was supposed to be used for one of the executions.
I took the time to bring this all the way from the punishment room, so you better be grateful.
The sound of the roaring engine grew louder and louder, like the approaching footsteps of death. Mukuro wondered how Monokuma would drive it with such tiny arms and legs, but then she remembered she was dealing with the ultimate despair. Junko would make the impossible possible just to bring about despair. A despair that went hand in hand with Mukuro's fate. Did I fail? I couldn't fill Junko with despair? I couldn't save Makoto and the others? Questions raced through Mukuro's mind, but she wasn't able to answer them. There's no way she could have answered them so easily. After all, she was still alive. The sound of the motorcycle grew closer and closer, as if it was threatening to break Mukuro's spirit. Excuse me. Suddenly, Monokuma stopped moving. The other Monokumas continued doing their automatic movements. As this strange event unfolded, Mukuro noticed something. The motorcycle had suddenly gone quiet. After a few seconds, the engine exploded to life and began to approach even faster than before. Only a few seconds later, what approached in front of the main entrance was an enormous motorcycle that plowed through the groups of Monokumas like a predator hunting its prey. Mondo? The rider of this... Oh, yes! The rider of this motorcycle was none other than Mondo Owada. Ugh. Mukuro and Monokuma were both visibly shocked by this turn of events. Instead of addressing them, Mondo accelerated the motorcycle he stole from Monokuma directly toward Mukuro. Just before his front tire touched Mukuro, he popped a reverse wheelie and turned the entire motorcycle around. The black wheel swept over Mukuro's back. Mukuro's back? What? Okay, so I guess Mukuro's laying on the floor, like with her face turned up, with her stomach on the floor. The back wheel swept over Mukuro's back, knocking away all the Monokumas that were pinning her. Hey, can you stand? Mondo asked and begrudgingly offered his hand to Mukuro. Confused, Mukuro took his hand and stood up. What are you doing, Mondo? I was so close! One of the Monokumas protested. Not in his normal voice, but as the hacker, Bashiki Madurai.
Oh yeah! You're Bashiki or...
Oh yeah, you're Bashiki or whatever, right?
That's right! Why are you helping a terrorist?
I ain't bragging about this or anything, but I've no clue if you or this girl is lying.
The veins in his temple began to bulge, and his cheeks flushed with anger as Mondo said,
But still, I ain't the type to just stand around and let some idiot gang up on a girl.
What are you saying?
What are you saying? Get a hold of yourself! You must be experiencing Stockholm Syndrome. You've deluded yourself into thinking you're friends with the criminals who's taken you hostage.
Monokuma tried to explain to Mondo, but he ignored him. Took Mukuro's hand and pulled her onto the back of the motorcycle.
Oh, shut the fuck up! I don't know nothing about Stockholms or syndromes. But don't go acting like you can boss me around.
As Mondo shouted, he revved the motorcycle as if he was using it to punctuate his words. The ceiling-mounted turrets began moving, but the disappeared before the turrets could take aim at the motorcycle. Jesus, how fucking long is this? I was told this was just gonna be like 700 pages. But I don't know if that's like 700 pages in an actual book or just this game. I don't know. As they zoomed through the hallway, countless Monokumas chased after them, waving their claws wildly through the air. Why? Asked Mukuro.
Huh?
Shouted Mondo. His voice was even louder than the sound of the engine.
Don't get the wrong idea. I don't trust you at all.
He lowered his voice slightly, as if he were whispering to himself.
But still, I don't know why, but I feel like I could trust what he said.
He? Inquired Mukuro. There was no time for questions. The unit leading the Monokumas chasing after the motorcycle had almost caught up to them. And then, like the enormous maw of some fearsome creature, they brandished their claws in perfect unison. At that moment, the motorcycle zoomed by a certain girl. A girl whose fighting ability surpassed that of any normal human. The strongest girl on Earth. With a fighting spirit that defied comprehension, the ultimate martial artist kicked off the floor. A sound even louder than the motorcycle's engine filled the room. When Mukuro looked back, she saw Sakura landing on the floor, sending the pack of Monokumas flying several meters away. Sakura? If she heard Mukuro mumble her name, Sakura didn't acknowledge it. Like a statue of a fearsome god king. Okay, a fearsome king, fearsome god. I've never heard of a fearsome god king. She calmed her breathing as she stood before the pack of Monokumas, ready for battle.
Your pursuit methods seem unbecoming for someone who claims to be the ultimate hacker.
An overpowering aura seemed to seeped from her skin, and her skin shimmered as an intense heat began to fill the hallway. Unlike the power of Mukuro's sheer violence, this was the power of martial arts. Mukuro froze the air around her and the time along with it, but Sakura was generating enough heat to boil its space itself as she stood before the Monokumas. With that heat stinging her back, Mukuro looked ahead. Jesus Christ, this thing just keeps going on and on and on. If I knew it was going to be like this, I would have broken it up. Because I didn't think it was going to be like this. I thought this was going to be like an hour of reading and that's it. Hifumi and Chihiro were cautiously peeking from behind the door leading to the dorms, while Aoi and Taka kept watch from inside the building. After passing them by, Mondo slowed down the motorcycle as he reached the front of the cafeteria and turned into a complete stop. Okay. The other students looked warily at Mukuro. But among these students, Mukuro noticed two people who weren't regarding her with suspicion. One was Kyoko, who seemed to be studying the situation. The other one was a skinny boy who was leaning against Kyoko's shoulder. Makoto? Mukuro's lips began to tremble as she sat on the back of the motorcycle. Ignoring the pain coursing through his body, Makoto smiled at Mukuro and repeated what he said to her earlier. I'm glad you're safe, Mukuro. Unfortunately, Mukuro was unable to realize her hope of filling her little sister with despair. Instead, she had successfully planted the seeds of hope into her fellow students. Oh my god! It just keeps going! Okay. There's bookmarks! Read from bookmark. Character introduction. What is this? Am I gonna get good art, different art of Mukuro? Okay, so we do get the art of her as that. I don't know how to break this up, but I am so hungry. And this was recorded all within the same days as the extra stuff. Everything that was the ending of the game, completely different. This was all extra stuff, and I thought it was just going to be a few episodes. I was expecting the most would be, like, setting up in the others. This is absurd! I didn't want to read a full fucking book. I just wanted, like, a little passage. Jesus Christ, this thing just keeps going. I did not expect this thing to be hours long. So, have a nice day. So this is going to be a whole nother day for me to record this, but I know for a fact that this is actually coming up near the end. I'm kind of glad that I was able to take some time away from this and actually have, you know, time to cool down, because then I can actually enjoy this ending and see what it actually consists of. But still throwing a monkey wrench that I have to record this on another day, but oh well. Makoto had barely regained consciousness while Mukuro was fighting the horde of Monokumas at the main entrance. When he woke up, he did something extremely simple. He talked about his memories. Most of the students were still skeptical even after listening to Mukuro's recorded confession on Chihiro's laptop. Obviously, they were still not entirely convinced at first when Makoto woke up, but after Sakura asked him a certain question, the ambiance completely changed.
Then beyond the walls of the school, the world is completely destroyed? You're saying there's no one else alive?
Makoto slowly sat up to answer Sakura's meek question. Don't worry. I'm sure Kenichiro, don't know who that is. Kenichiro is still safe. Probably from Zero, but oh well. I'm sure he'll still keep his promise to you. Sakura gasped. Kenichiro was the only man she couldn't defeat. But I thought she beat her dad at one point. The man who had promised her a rematch made her one other promise as well.
How do you know that name? How do you know about that promise?
Because you told me. No. Makoto slowly corrected himself. You told all of us. Sakura was silent after hearing those words, but she then faced the other students and spoke in a loud, clear voice.
I'm going to trust Makoto.
Sakura! Though Aoi was shocked, Sakura continued to speak with determination.
What Makoto just said is something I kept locked away inside my memories. In fact, I was planning to keep that a secret until the day I died. But if I shared that secret, that means there was once a strong bond between Makoto, myself, and with my fellow students as well.
Makoto continued to talk in a gentle tone. Though it couldn't have been good for his health, he continued to slowly talk about his memories, that the other students no longer had. Why do you know about that story I'm planning to write? Asked the specialist writer. Are you a specialist Nen user who can predict the future? This is Hifumi. You already finished that story, Hifumi. You had me help you with inking.
What? Wait a sec! How do you know
Well, hold on. Was the Kuzuryu clan mentioned in the first game? Because this had to have been written before the second game came out, right? How do you know I extorted money from that girl related to the Kuzuryu clan? Because you even tried to sell my organs to them. His wounds were excruciating. But even so, Makoto kept smiling and talking about their lives together. As if it was his duty to do so now that he had regained his memories. As the other students listened to him, they slowly began to realize something. The vivid accounts he was providing couldn't be explained as just passing knowledge. Clearly, some kind of bond between them had been erased. Only Byakuya remained cynical. Of course, there's no way I would have grown closer to any of you. It's likely that you're all secretly working together. Though Byakuya was still hostile toward Makoto's recollection of their memories, for the time being he determined that Makoto wasn't actually a terrorist. Mukuro had bought enough time for Makoto to wake up and share his memories with the others. Even if she hadn't intended to do that, it was still a small sliver of hope that she had grasped tightly. And now, as she looked at the boy who had smiled at her, Mukuro didn't know what to say. She couldn't think of anything to say at all. The battle was over, and Mukuro was now back to being a disappointing girl. She turned away from everyone's faces and apologetically climbed on the back of the motorcycle. But Makoto saw her and slowly opened his mouth to say, "Thank you, Mukuro. You saved my life." Makoto gave her words of sincere gratitude between his weak breaths. Mukuro couldn't bring herself to look at him as she mumbled to herself. Why? If Kyoko told you, then you already know what I did, right? After regaining his memories and learning the truth, Mukuro should have been nothing but a hated traitor to him. Why would he smile at someone like her? Mukuro kept her head down. Makoto smiled as if he was unsure how to respond and said, Well, I guess you're right. But you also saved my life many times during these past 2 years, and... Makoto took a deep, quiet breath and smiled at Mukuro again. You're my friend. We all spent time with each other. It would be great if you could look for a different path, not despair. And if there's any way I can help you, I will. Do you really think I can walk another path at this point? I don't know what you can do, or even what I can do. But I think it's more important to look for that path instead of actually finding it. Was this intentional, or coincidence? Just before he regained his memories, Makoto had something similar to Mukuro when she spoke to him in the nurse's office as Junko. Said something similar, excuse me. Regardless of whether he lost his memories or regained them, those words revealed Makoto's true character. As Mukuro confirmed that to herself, Makoto blurted out something that was almost too trusting. And it's not just you. Even Junko can. But he was immediately interrupted. My voice is not awakened yet. I just woke up to record this last little bit. Monokuma's face appeared on every monitor in the academy, and his laughter seemed to be coming out of every speaker.
I could have kept pretending to be the ultimate hacker, but I was born to impersonate someone who doesn't even exist. If this keeps up, I'll lose my identity and turn into Kanokuma.
Kyoko looked up at the surveillance camera and addressed Monokuma directly. You seem to give up pretty easily.
There isn't a bear anywhere that gives up as easily as I do. Regardless, I'm pretty sure Chihiro has figured out the secret of my control program by now.
So just as I thought. I don't know who this is. Just as I thought. You included that program on purpose. Probably Kyoko. Kyoko realized something when Mukuro told her about Junko. There were 2 reasons such a hateful person would intentionally leave an obvious clue inside the Monokuma units. Either Junko wanted the students to learn the truth about the outside world and themselves on their own and turn their hope into despair. Or she was looking forward to that clue resulting in her own plan being undone, which would allow her to feel despair toward herself. She was an angel of everlasting darkness, delighting in her own despair and using it to spread despair and destruction to those around her. Why would someone like that continue to play the role of Monokuma?
Actually, I set that program for Chihiro to discover if she happened to be one of the final 5 survivors. I feel so sad and empty that my preparation was a waste, but I'm going to think about it positively. The word retreat doesn't exist in Monokuma's dictionary.
Nervousness began to grip the students as Monokuma continued talking in his relaxing, uplifting voice.
Now then, it looks like everyone's here, including Toko, who's still tied up in her room. So let's start the heart-throbbing, exciting, special graduation exam!
Huh? The students broke out in a noisy confusion, but Monokuma ignored them and kept talking.
Don't think about it too hard. Relax. Change, Alax, to Upert.
Huh? Rupert. Okay.
For all I care, I'll still be the most adorable bear here. Byakuya visibly
annoyed with Monokuma's nonsensical ramblings, shouted, I already know it's you, Junko. Stop this stupid game and show yourself.
Oh my! Don't you know? If you want to lure the mastermind out of her heavenly hidey hole, you need to bring a worthy sacrifice. You're not worthy enough at all. You really think the mastermind would show herself for your pathetic hope and despair?
He roared maniacally, then began to explain the special graduation exam.
If you pass my exam, everyone will graduate. But if you fail, you'll be held back for a whole year. I'll reset your memories, give you a fresh new lease on life, and you'll reintroduce yourselves at the start of the school year again. They say people's lives don't come with reset buttons, but I'm not a people. Whether it's soft resets or hard resets, I can do as I please.
Yasuhiro seemed confused, but the other students knew what Monokuma meant by reset. He was going to force them to relive their school lives once again. As Yasuhiro struggled to understand, Taka pointed at a nearby monitor and shouted,
Stop this already! No matter what you do to us, we'll never commit murder! These past few days should have already made that clear to you!
What was that?
Jumped Monokuma.
Are you serious?
Of course! No one here would ever take another human being's life for any reason!
As Taka shouted, one of the students, a pale-faced girl, standing apart from the others, looked away. Mukuro. Oh, it was oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, she was intending to kill, but oh well. It was Sayaka. As she trembled, a voice popped up from behind her. Monokuma?
What do you think, Sayaka?
She couldn't even turn around from sheer terror, but Sayaka knew. She knew Monokuma was standing right behind her.
Do you really think none of you will become a killer?
Monokuma leaned towards Sayaka and asked her a question only she could hear.
By the way, Sayaka, why did you go to Makoto's room when nothing strange had happened yet? Did you two have an inappropriate relationship? What would your fans think if they found out you made a move on a boy by sneaking into his room? Or were you there for some other reason?
She could barely make a sound, much less a scream, as her trembling worsened. I thought it was trembling voice, but oh well. Monokuma had nothing to gain by cornering Sayaka and toying with her emotions like this. He simply wanted to see the young singer fall into despair over her true character. And for that reason, Monokuma did not relent.
Hey! What were you trying to do to your close friend you've known for these past 2 years?
Her determination from last night blended with her memories Makoto had recounted, and ate away at Sayaka's mind like a disease. As her mind began to rip itself apart, she fell to her knees. A clear ball, flying at just under 105 miles per hour, struck Monokuma in the mouth with enough force to sink into his face. Is Leon using Yasuhiro's crystal ball? The speaker in Monokuma's mouth was immediately destroyed as his body rolled into a wall and stopped moving. Sayaka came to her senses and looked where the ball came flying from. She saw Leon, breathing heavily as he stared intensely at Monokuma. Yasuhiro grabbed him and yelled,
Dude! Why'd you do that, Leon? That crystal ball is really valuable!
Leon had stolen Yasuhiro's crystal ball and thrown it at Monokuma.
That Monokuma bastard was trying to take Sayaka hostage. What was I supposed to do? Dude, that crystal ball cost me like $2 trillion! 2 trillion! They don't even print that much money anymore! Oh, bullshit! Besides, if the world is all screwed up, what the hell are you gonna need money for anyway? But if it's safe out there, I'll just join the major leagues or whatever and pay you back. Well, I could pay you back doing something else besides baseball.
As those two argued, Sayaka fell to her knees.
Hey!
Shouted Leon, running toward her.
Sayaka, are you okay?
She looked at him and stared blankly.
Leon.
She had made up her mind, and she raised her head as she said,
There's something I need to confess to you later.
What? Seriously?
Sayaka was staring at Leon so intensely that he briefly forgot about the current situation.
Not just to you, but to Makoto and the others too.
Sayaka had made up her mind to confess the sin that was weighing heavily on her heart, but Leon seemed not to hear the latter half of the remark. He ran back to the others, slapped Hifumi and Yasuhiro on their backs, and shouted,
Alright, everyone, let's ace this exam or whatever, and get out of here already. Yo.
I think that's what his comment thing was.
Yo.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm gonna let my happy memories of this place get taken away.
The Monokuma inside the monitor responded.
Fine. Now that things are finally coming to a boil, let's start the graduation exam.
Sakura, who had been outside the dormitory, suddenly appeared with some information.
The Monokumas in the hallway are acting peculiar.
The students all moved to the main building to see what Sakura was talking about. There, they saw 50 Monokumas standing in 2 rows along the walls of the hallway, and one standing at the very end of the hall. There was something strange on top of this Monokuma's head. An enlarged version of the escape button that Makoto had obtained for the Mono machine. As each student took in this sight, an announcement rang through the school.
The me at the end of the hall has a button on top of its head that'll open the main entrance. You'll have 15 seconds to get that button, and if you do, I'll let you have it in place of a diploma.
The students seemed surprised by the straightforward explanation. Only Celeste remained calm, and she asked Monokuma with a bored look on her face.
Of course. It is not as simple as running up and taking it, is it?
How mean! Do I look like the kind of headmaster that would interfere with a student's graduation? Forget the gunfire salutes. I'm gonna send my graduates off with some fireworks! 100 fireworks to be exact. Enough for 20 seconds of hardcore partying!
The more perceptive students immediately realized what he was talking about. The bombs installed inside each Monokuma. They would explode one after another, filling the hallway with fire as soon as time started.
After 15 seconds, the me standing at the back of the hall is gonna sacrifice himself to give you guys one final firework! By the way, this probably isn't important, but that button isn't very durable.
This graduation exam was Monokuma's way of saying that he had no intention of letting anyone leave. It was clear from the explosion the students saw during the entrance exam that the halls of Hope's Peak Academy would be bathed in fire. Even if someone was lucky enough to survive the explosions, the burns on their body alone would be enough to send them into a fatal shock. Their lungs might be completely incinerated by the scorched air before that. Even if they sacrificed one student to run through, the odds were low. That they would even succeed. But there was no reason for every student to run in at once either, and a shadow of despair fell upon their faces.
Very nice. Very nice. I almost want to take a picture of those, so I have those faces as a souvenir.
As Monokuma laughed from behind the monitor, Sakura stepped forward.
I'll do it. I have only seen the explosion once, but I believe I'm capable of withstanding its power.
No, shouted Aoi. You can't. Even you couldn't handle 100 of those explosions. Sakura shook her head.
I'm the only one who even has a chance.
Suddenly, Mondo remembered the motorcycle he parked inside the dormitory and said,
Hold up! That motorcycle might be fast enough to go through those explosions. I'll do it.
Don't be hasty, urged Sakura. Even if the motorcycle is unharmed by the explosions, that doesn't mean its rider will be.
As Sakura and the others continued their debate, one person stepped toward the hallway lined with the Monokumas. I'll do it.
Mukuro!
Screamed Makoto weakly. Makuro? Mukuro, with her back facing Makoto, turned her head to the side slightly and gave him a small nod. She knew it would come to this. She knew why Monokuma would pose such an impossible exam. Junko is already looking forward to the next despair game. She's going to erase everyone's memories, including mine. She just wants to torment us and fill us with despair before that happens. But Mukuro knew her sister's personality all too well. That's why she was confident. She knew that the escape button was real. Whenever Junko brought despair to others, she always made sure that there was a possibility that despair would befall her instead. If the students won this gamble and made it through this horrible situation, they would finally escape to the outside world. That outcome would obviously fill Junko with immense despair. In the same way, she left a clue in Monokuma's control program. Junko could not be satisfied unless she took pains to assure her own destruction. It was this quality that made Junko the ultimate despair. That's why Mukuro was determined to do it. She knew she was the only person who stood a chance of making that outcome possible, even if she had to risk her life. But right now, Mukuro wanted to live more than anything. She wanted to hold on to this world, a world she had no interest in previously. She didn't even know if this hesitation she felt was disappointing or not. She wanted to live and continue searching for a new path. A path where she could abandon her submission and despair, where she could accept the sins of the past and continue to live. Mukuro, who was known as a war machine, found her heart beset by overwhelming fear and anxiety. Until now, it never occurred to her that determination was necessary to live. As if she was brushing that fear aside, she quietly said, Thank you, Makoto. Unfortunately, the words she said to the boy who showed her new possibilities never reached his ears. Sakura, however, heard her and frowned as she said,
If you're planning to sacrifice yourself as an act of penance, I shall stop you with all my power. Power.
I'm glad I got that at least once during that sentence. Back to her voice. Though her words were firm, there was no unmistakable affection hiding in them. Both girls had dedicated their lives to battle, and yet Mukuro felt a twinge of jealousy towards Sakura for possessing something she lacked. Mukuro leaned towards Sakura and whispered in her ear,
What? Are you serious?
As Sakura's frown intensified, Monokuma's voice blared throughout the halls.
All right, I'm gonna start the exam now. Ready, set, go!
There was no time for questions or objections. The frontmost Monokuma exploded, sending a roaring wave of heat through the hall. But Mukuro didn't look away. She began moving, powered by resolute determination. Monokuma Room. As soon as the graduation exam started, the mastermind focused her control entirely on Monokuma holding the escape button, and completely synchronized her field of vision with it. She knew what was going to happen next. She could predict that what her sister, Mukuro, would do in this exact situation, where she would choose to focus her superhuman skill with weaponry. Jesus Christ, I'm struggling to read. And so, through Monokuma's eyes, she watched the scene unfold exactly as she had predicted. A pointed metal bar burst through the explosions, heading straight for the weak point of the Monokuma holding the escape button. Specifically, it was aiming for the point where the bomb's detonation system and Monokuma's power source overlapped. It flew straight and true, as if it had been fired by a master archer. In order to bring despair to Monokuma, and by extension Junko as well, the super soldier known as Mukuro Ikusaba threw the pipe like a spear so it could attack the same weak point she had pierced in the nurse's office. As explosions filled the hallway until only fire remained visible, the spear's speed and precision as it soared to its target defied all human logic. The mastermind knew. She knew Mukuro had used her power to fill the world with despair. Power was all that disappointing girl had, but that power was useless against Monokuma. The mastermind had predicted that Mukuro would put all her effort into that throw, and Monokuma caught the metal bar perfectly between his hands. The force of the throw knocked Monokuma back several yards, but the pointed end of the bar never pierced through his chest. But because of inertia, the button should still remain in place and it fell to the floor, right? Or is it still on top of Monokuma's head? Well, that was disappointing. The mastermind turned to look at a different monitor. She wanted to see the look on Mukuro's face when she realized that she failed to strike Monokuma. The despair of seeing the final Monokuma explode right before her eyes, completely obliterating the escape button. She wanted to sear this memory into her disappointing sister's final moments as her newfound hope sank into a dark pit of despair. On instinct, she turned her attention to the surveillance camera that hadn't been destroyed, but instead of seeing Mukuro and the others, she only saw Sakura, who looked as though she had finished launching an attack. Huh? She only thought it was strange for 1 second, but then the hopelessly powerful mastermind completely understood the situation and shifted her point of view to Monokuma. But because of that single second, Junko would feel such a pang of despair. 3 seconds left. Amid the smoke, flames, and heat encircling the hallway, it burst through the speed of a cannon shell. It glared at Monokuma with hot, boiling eyes that betrayed the icy expression on its face, and then, sharply, swiftly, strongly, it transformed into a living weapon that cuts through everything, revealing its true form in that hall of despair. 2 seconds left. Monokuma, who was still holding the metal bar in his hands, tried to move, but at that exact moment, the living weapon carved a path through the flames and appeared before him. Its body, which had never been wounded on any battlefield, was sustaining all manner of burns and injuries. But even so, it did not falter. The fire in its eyes never flickered once. 1 second left. The living weapon, Mukuro, slammed her knee into the back of the metal bar Monokuma was holding. The sharp tip of that metal bar pierced through Monokuma like a rail spike, shredding the detonator and his power source into pieces. Time's up. The 100 explosions ceased and smoke blanketed the hallway. Mukuro had dived into Monokuma and the pristine escape button now rested in her hand. She and the other students of Hope's Peak Academy had passed the graduation exam. It was only a small amount of despair. Monokuma had tasted it in only 3 seconds. First floor hallway. Junko. Mukuro looked down at Monokuma. He could no longer move or self-destruct. When she spoke to him, a static-filled voice emitted from his mouth. It seemed his communication function still worked.
I never expected you to do that.
He still sounded like Monokuma. It seems his voice modulator was unarmed as well.
I must have overestimated you. I never thought you'd need anybody's help on the battlefield.
When I give the signal, please launch me forward with a roundhouse kick. Mukuro whispered those words to Sakura just before the explosion started. After Mukuro threw the metal bar, she jumped into the air at the exact moment Sakura unleashed a roundhouse kick. Right when Sakura's foot made contact with her own, Mukuro used the force generated by her kick to propel herself at Monokuma. Using the ultimate martial artist's superhuman attack like a springboard, she shot herself through the air like an artillery shell. Enduring intense heat, shrapnel, and blood-draining G-force, she stayed conscious as she charged through the hallway, engulfed with explosions and despair. Mukuro trusted Junko. She trusted Junko to predict that she'd throw the metal bar and catch it accordingly. Then she tried to look at her face as the despair sets in. The Junko Enoshima she knew would definitely do that. Although Mukuro hadn't predicted that her sister would try to kill her with the spears of Gungnir, she had a better understanding of her actions now. As Mukuro stared Monokuma in his face, all she could do was laugh scornfully. You put your life in someone else's hands for a deadly battle? This is Monokuma.
You put your life in someone else's hands for a deadly battle? I don't know how I feel about that. You'll always be a half-assed disappointment. I guess this time I'll just say I lost, because I didn't see this much disappointment coming. The end.
Mukuro shook her head at Monokuma. No. You're wrong, Junko.
Huh?
If you want to talk about winning or losing, I think we lost before we even started. Mukuro's eyes shifted from side to side as she was unsure of something, and she fidgeted in place as she continued to talk. No matter how much despair they felt, you didn't think they'd kill each other with the way they were before. That's why you erased their memories. They aren't like the others you forced in the past. You knew these students would never do it. That's what you believed, isn't it?
What are you talking about?
So, it's okay, Junko. I'll bring back everyone's memories someday, and I'll show you everyone's happiness and their bonds. I'll show you all that to you. I'll show all that to you, and fill you with even more despair. Mukuro nodded after she said this, as if to cheer her sister up. After several seconds of silence, Monokuma responded,
You finally beat me this one time, and that lame speech is the best you can do? You're such a disappointment. You never fill me with despair. It's just constant disappointment.
After pouting like a sore loser, Monokuma continued to speak in his usual tone.
But you guys will be back. And when that time comes, I'll invite you guys to a wonderful place. I found out about this fun island where I was running things here. While I was running things here...
Okay. So, yeah, this person who wrote this had to have known about something with Kuzuryu and the island. Interesting. So, maybe the people who made this game read, obviously they would have had to read the Zero thing to make a nod to it and actually strictly mention it, but, like, maybe they gave them the script ahead of time or something? I don't know. Monokuma's laughter filled the room before the static finally cut out, and his remains fell silent. He wouldn't be talking again anytime soon. The mastermind was already preparing a new despair to bring to the world and to the students of Hope's Peak Academy, Junko included. In the end, the mastermind stayed in her Monokuma persona until the very end, and Junko Enoshima never showed her face again. It was as if she resented the despair Mukuro had given her. That thought almost filled Mukuro with despair. But when she heard her classmates calling for her, she sealed that despair into the depths of her heart. From now on, she would seal away all her despair. And one day, when she can give Junko the perfect despair, she'll unleash all that despair she stored and plunge with her sister into a dark abyss. I won't leave my little sister alone. In the end, that was the first hope the disappointing older sister had felt since she was a child. Several hours later, in the main entrance, with the sequence that we saw from before, with an alternate route. Kinda cool that they used the same art. But I mean, you're kinda limited, but oh well. Mukuro, are you really going to go out wearing that wig? After receiving a blood transfusion of the correct blood type, Makoto was beginning to show signs of recovering. Mukuro, holding her wig to disguise herself as Junko Enoshima, nodded. If I leave as Junko, I might be able to understand her better. Despite that, Mukuro's voice still sounded like her own, as if she hadn't fully decided. And I've made up my mind. While I'm out there, I've decided I'll accept everyone's hatred toward me, and toward Junko. I can't die until I've destroyed all the despair that Junko has spread. The damage that ultimate despair inflicted upon the world could not be measured in terms of money, culture, or even human life. Television broadcasts had already begun informing people that Junko Enoshima and Mukuro Ikusaba were the heart of ultimate despair. Among the survivors of the outside world, there are still people who hadn't been tainted by despair yet. Regardless of the fact that she released Makoto and the others, to these survivors, she was nothing more than the reason the world ended. And to the terrorists wearing Monokuma masks who continued to ravage the world, Mukuro was nothing but a traitor. She was now in the hopeless situation of being enemies with most of humanity. But Mukuro wasn't making a big deal out of it. I'm going to try not to kill anyone who comes after me for revenge. Wouldn't it be safer to turn yourself in? Wondered Yasuhiro.
Well, you might just get executed instead. But you could live to be an old lady if your trial keeps getting pushed back.
Mukuro slowly shook her head at Yasuhiro. Laws, justice, these things no longer exist.
Is it really that bad out there? Maybe we should just stay in here.
Byakuya glared at Yasuhiro with contempt. Ignorant idiot should just shut up. Your fate won't change whether you stay in here or not. Though he was shocked to learn the Togami Corporation had been destroyed, Byakuya continued to remain firm and proud, even toward Mukuro. You rare asset, continued Byakuya. So I will let you live for now. Depending on your actions, I may consider forgiving your crimes after I've built a new world. Only a Togami would boast that they're capable of forgiving the crime of ending the world. You don't need to do that. I don't plan on just surviving. After turning away from Byakuya, Mukuro looked at the other students. Everyone was reacting in their own way. Kyoko had a look of quiet preparation. Toko, having just changed back from Genocide Jack, was panicked and confused. Mukuro looked back at the 2 years she spent with them, then turned to Makoto, excuse me, who shared the same memories as her, and gave him the escape button. Makoto, you press it. Me? I think it's better if you press it instead of me. As she watched Makoto accept the button with some hesitation, Mukuro thought about what Monokuma had said.
You guys will be back.
Mukuro knew that Monokuma was telling the truth. After all, the file the students needed to fully restore their lost memories remained hidden in the academy. The research notes of Yasuke Matsuda, the ultimate neurologist. His research is the key for restoring everyone's memories. Even if the students no longer have their memories, they may be able to repair their bonds they had built among themselves over the past 2 years. But as long as their memories remain unrestored, the mastermind could still repeat her deadly plan. Although the island mentioned earlier sounded strange, the students could not turn their backs on the despair facing them. Then, let's go. Makoto remembered everything that was happening in the outside world. The boy who had chosen to remain inside the academy 2 years ago was now choosing to leave. How much did he struggle to come to that decision? But he was determined to face the despair awaiting him outside, and hid his internal conflict from the others. By protecting Makoto's hope, Mukuro would bring despair to her beloved sister. But she no longer knew if the end result of her goal would lead to hope or despair. She pulled the wig over her head and hid her face with her hands. Was she smiling because hope was waiting for her? Or was she crying because her path would lead to despair? When she lowered her hands, her face was devoid of all emotion. Mukuro no longer knew what expression she would wear on her face. At the same time, Makoto pressed the escape button. A siren began to wail as the turrets retracted into the ceiling. From beyond the heavy door, a bright light appeared. An infinite number of ifs, and all the possibilities contained therein, encased the world. Accepting everything, hope, despair, and even the feelings of that disappointing girl, Mukuro Ikusaba. And that is that. Pretty good. Nice. And that is where I guess I can finish Danganronpa 2. I hope you liked it. And hopefully you're looking forward to more and what's to come in the Danganronpa storyline. Because it doesn't just end there. There is actually quite a bit more. But for now, I'll leave you with one final message. In that being, have a nice day.